Open Conservation Commission meeting at 7:31 on August 27th. And you all said on the minutes, we need to go back from.
Well, I only got partway through them.
So
Let's come back to them.
we'll come back to them.
Yeah.
Administrative discussion, Ian O'Connell, Eagle Scout Project.
So I was able to finish my Eagle Scout project, which was the kiosk for the Oak Hill entrance off of Harvard Road on the 25th of August. I brought some pictures. The project took about 4 days. The total hours of everyone that worked was 114.
How many of those 114 were yours?
23.
Have you written all your thank you notes?
I am not yet. I am working on that though.
It's gotta be done.
I know.
Okay. What was your biggest challenge?
Probably lifting the roof onto the frame of the kiosk the second day. That took everyone that was there, and we just had to go over a lot of safety things, and it was really heavy, so it took a lot of coordination, a lot of communication between everyone.
So leadership. Okay. Tell us a little bit about your budget.
So the original cost estimate that I was given by the Conservation Commission, I believe, was sorry, just another picture, just of the materials, was around $400 to $450. Originally, there was a mistype when they were typing up the receipt, so it ended up being around $700, but that was because a decimal point was misplaced, and it made something 14 instead of 1.4, which added about $320 to the project. So once I was able to return those, the cost came back down. I think my final cost was $457.03. And I was given $400 by the Littleton Rotary Club.
I stopped in Oak Hill. I go by that probably at least once a day during the summer. And my only comment would be, I think you did a nice job, would be I'd like to see a couple of thumb latches on the inside of one door.
And
So that the
Jim,
wind-
that picture right there, I passed that around to Rick, and Chris Mountain went over and they put in one of those, you can kind of see the bolt to
Yep.
keep it in place.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because it did flop a fair bit.
Yeah. So at this point, we can put a lock on it and complete.
Awesome.
And that was plexiglass, right?
Yes.
Right, it's a nice job. Does it need some sort of a protective coating put on the wood?
It does not. All of the wood is exterior grade pressure treated.
What's its life expectancy?
I do not actually know.
You want to guess and go on record?
I'd give it probably about 20 years.
Okay.
Is that what the roof is rated?
So that's 25, right?
That's true. 25.
Is that mahogany on the doors?
It is, I believe, yes.
So you said your biggest challenge was the roof.
Yeah.
If you had less people, had you thought through how you might be able to get that roof up?
We didn't have enough people originally, so I had to call a few friends and have some extra people show up to help us.
Okay.
One of my friends lived right down the road, so he was able to give us like water and provide bathrooms and everything for the project, which was good.
Excellent.
So we're gonna go from here.
Hi, Sarah.
How's it going? Would you like to see some pictures?
I'm sorry, I wasn't totally paying attention. Did you mention that you used an auger to
Yes,
drill the hole
so
through the post?
yeah, we used an auger
Eagle
the
project.
day of the project to drill the post hole, so that we wouldn't have to use post hole diggers to dig down 3 feet. So that's where
How deep are they in?
3 feet.
Was concreted in?
Yep.
Excellent. Is this a experience that you would recommend to someone else in your position?
Definitely.
Okay.
I think it was a project that wasn't too big, but it definitely provided a lot of leadership opportunities.
Good. And accomplishment. That's good.
Definitely, yeah.
Yep. Okay. So the process for us now, walk us through what you need from us at the present time.
All I need is a signature from you for as the beneficiary.
Okay. Is there anyone here that wants to offer any support for you in the audience?
Sure, absolutely.
We saw it in person and it looks awesome.
I went through a long process of picking it to begin with. Went through a couple of other options
Yep.
and came down to the wire, as it were. And it was
Yeah.
very good to get it done in time. And he did a very good job on it. It looks great.
Thank you.
And
I guess I would like a motion that the board accepts.
Well, so I have one question since I got here late. So I see 8 people in the picture. So were you like the supervisor of these 8 people?
I was.
how it
Yeah.
worked?
So I basically, the day before, I made like a list of jobs of what I expected people to do. I had the list of people that were going to show up, and I had kind of 2 projects going at the same time. So we had the frame being put into the ground and cemented in, and then the roof being built, and then the second day we put the roof on. So the first day I had 2 of my older friends who are actually both Eagle Scouts, sort of had them working with each team, and then I was going back and forth with plans, making sure that everything was staying on track.
What were your weather conditions?
It got a little rainy halfway through the first day, which was we knew that was going to happen, which is why we wanted the 2 different parts going at once. So we were kind of racing against the rain.
So since you were supervising, you didn't really get to do any of the work. You just went around and made sure everybody else was doing a good job.
I was not supposed to. There were a few times that I had to pull myself back and give
Right.
jobs to other people. That was definitely
Right,
one of the
cool.
things I struggled with.
So you learned how to delegate. That's good.
Right.
And just so you know, there has been a complaint from 3 Sawyer across the street who says that the plexiglass is reflecting light back to him.
No.
This is from his doorway.
Yeah, I was trying to say, well, how the headlights get in there? And he said, no, it's my porch light.
Oh.
Shut it off.
It's under yeah. Natural resources.
He
that
wanted
we
to go
have.
over there and paint the wood 'cause he said the wood was reflecting, so he said, the wood will age.
Yeah.
The plexiglass will get scratched up.
Yeah, it'll mute out. Okay.
Maybe this guy.
And so that second lock was put on to keep it to be more stable as well.
Oh, excellent.
So, cool. Okay, anybody want to make a motion for the chairman?
So moved.
No. Okay.
Do I hear a second?
You want to make a
Yeah.
motion?
I'll make a motion that the commission fully support the project as completed. I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Aye. Awesome. You get to sign, Chairman.
Thank you.
If you could pass those to Amy.
Did you take 'em?
I can print up.
Let them know where
Yeah, that's.
Beneficiary name, right?
Yep.
So if it's okay with you all, you had back in, I don't even know when this was, January, December, had voted $600 towards a kiosk as sort of the template
Thank you.
before this project came along, so obviously that money didn't get used. But we were gonna use some of the
Somewhere we
money
need a copy
for
of that.
that second
Yes.
HAS and for a bunch of locks that the kiosks are gonna
Okay.
need if it's all the same general idea.
So we do need a copy, whoever's taking the original, we do need a copy of that for the file as well.
Can I email like a picture of that in, or
You can scan
Or
it, yep.
Scan it, okay.
Yep,
Yeah.
scan it, that'd be great. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just going back to the locks, what we thought was we would try to come up with a lock that worked for all the kiosks around town ultimately.
Well, we can buy a box of them with all the same serial number.
Well, that's it. It came down to, doing the combination lock is gonna be a lot easier than doing a key lock. Apparently, it's hard to get, once you have the locks, it's hard to change it. So if it's all right with you, I'll go in that direction, find a combination lock that can be set so It can be CONS or something like that.
I've never heard of a combination lock being
Letters? No.
being able to be set like that.
Oh,
At one point I bought a dozen locks in a box. They're all set for the same serial number for the office. I don't know what, I think they've since gotten lost or what have you. But that was, and then you just have a key.
But yeah, I think find what you makes sense.
Yeah, it can be done.
Yeah.
Okay.
One
All
or the
right.
other.
With the combo, but not with.
Yeah, as long as it's gonna
As long as-
weather. Really,
Yeah,
is what-
I'll try.
Thank you.
thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ian.
Thanks for your time.
Did you want to hit on the boardwalk? I think you guys talked about it just a second. You were looking for some support. Who was I talking to earlier?
Oh, that was me, yeah, if any of the scouts are interested, did someone take that flyer that was sitting there? The Cloverdale Boardwalk project is hopefully gonna be getting started soon,
All right,
and we're certainly looking for volunteers to help
okay.
haul, nail, cut, whatever, so.
Do you have dates of when? Is that on the sheet? Yeah.
Yeah, we gotta wait for the water level to drop a little bit, but in the meantime, if we can get just sort of a list of contacts.
Is there you said there was a sheet somewhere? A
Just pick that
flyer,
up.
essentially?
It was.
I think I have it here.
Oh.
Here.
Yeah, if you just wanna,
Yeah.
send me whoever email address or something to me at the office, and I can just keep your name in it.
How many of these are gonna go through before we get to them?
I don't know.
Sorry.
Okay, will do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Cloverdale Lot 5A.
I didn't know if you wanted to have any discussion of that, but I did send you the entire packet of all the information that I had been through there, including the CPC applications, the land swap information, the original letter that was submitted. So that was all in your packet.
Is that something that you need to set aside sometime specifically and not just have it as an administrative discussion, or?
My impression right now is that we're gonna wait until Green International may or may not be able to get some of those corners better figured out.
Okay.
And in the meantime, stop mowing the rear portion, but keep mowing the front portion, because that's where all the stockpiling is.
Okay.
And get those signs up, those discs.
It kind of looks like we need to come back to some of this stuff we want to keep the meeting on.
I would suggest, to help clear everybody out of here, is maybe get the open space update and the 3 Spruce Street project.
Okay.
About the open space update.
Open space update, sure.
You got 5 minutes.
You can be sure on that, it's all dependent on how much time you take.
There's one.
It's on the rule.
So, we have 8 hikes planned, and there is one that's going to be the Hartwell property called a scavenger hunt. It's for taking selfies and some natural items. We just want to be sure you felt comfortable with that. It's less impact than the tree hunt. So that's just mostly notification. So the other interest is the Smith land. And as you may know, Sudbury Valley Trustees is going to buy the property. We have the CR over it, and this is about 60 acres, a combination of Sudbury Valley Trustees and the town of Harvard buying the Harvard portion. So we will still have the CR over everything, but the good thing is they'll raise $185,000 for the Smith family, the owners, and they will manage it professionally. So essentially it'll give us public access to everyone with something we don't have now, and it'll be professional management. So Sudbury Valley Trustees is going for various grants. They're hoping to raise $35,000 by individual donations. So we're working closely with them. It's mostly notification for you. I have some information here. I sent Amy some information on it. And actually, it's this shown here. It's all the area in red is the area the Sudbury Valley Trustees has gone by. This is owned by Harvard Conservation Commission. Conservation Commission has gone by this section. This section you own here. We own some here and some stuff along Beaver Brook. So essentially, it's going to cost us $0 for the town of Littleton to have the 60 acres of great land connecting conservation, different places and trails will pass through. So that's great news. Just for information about Sudbury Valley Trustees, is sort of a odd name. They really cover the region. Half the town of Littleton is in their watershed, and they cover all the town. So they do a lot in protecting land. We work closely with them. But it's unfortunate the name Sudbury Valley Trustees makes it sound like Sudbury or some other place. So let me just pass that
They're
out.
on the yacht property.
So
They're on the yacht.
in that direction, what we'd like to do is post in the kiosk on the YAP land where they raised $500,000 for Littleton to acquire it. And also the Oak Hill kiosk, the poster I just passed out about what's happening here and where to send donations. So it's all for the public benefit of Littleton. So that's my complete story.
Hey, Don, sorry, can I ask you a question? Those orange parcels here, it says it's private property.
Right.
So
Yes, I'll explain.
Okay.
We carved out the homestead where the Smiths, Edith and Paul Smith, lived. We don't want that under conservation restriction. That's been sold to a family that's actually doing some farming in the area, so that makes sense. The other part that's being carved out is the Webster barn, the shingled barn. No one wanted to have responsibility for that. We've found a structural engineer that might be able to fix it up. We'll store some equipment there. We'll have a screening around it. So it's really the best of all possibilities. The rest of it is just conservation land, vernal pools, grazing land.
I can tell you a little story about that time.
The Websters, yeah.
Yeah, I walked in the bottom there one day with my father, and the truck had gone through the floor and down onto the couch.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why we don't want to own it.
It is still there, yeah.
Okay,
And-
we appreciate that update. So
We have-
is that something also that can go in any of the flyers for townspeople to know, or any other way to distribute the information on SVT?
We'll be getting the information out through Littleton Trails, which has
Right.
1,200 people.
And also starting October 15th, there'll be a major push for it. We'll put our newsletter.
Okay.
But it's a great win for Littleton. It's only taken 30, 40 years to get here. And the Smiths have covered all the legal expenses. I wrote a couple of CRs, Chuck Roth wrote a couple of CRs. Essentially, the family has put all the money into it
Yep.
for a benefit.
That's
So
great.
it's a great win for Littleton.
Well, some of those yellow squares, they reserved 2 house lots, didn't they?
They did, but Edith Smith, in her wisdom, wrote in her will that if they had not been sold off by the time of her death, they would be extinguished. Now, the Smith kids became aware of it, and they could have hidden that, but they decided, no, honor the wishes of Edith, so those are extinguished.
Cool.
Okay.
That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah, I really appreciate the work you guys did on this. This is
It's a beautiful piece.
Yeah,
really
especially
appreciate
It'd
it.
be great.
Yeah, it's
the
good.
Smiths and the Smith kids have been fantastic throughout all this.
Now we need more people like that.
Yeah.
Sudbury Valley Trustees will be having a walk on November 3rd at 10 a.m. for anyone who would like to go.
And it's actually a wait list at this point, but we'll have more walks there, take everyone out. Joe Knox is thrilled with some of this. We had him some walks. He's always wanted public access there. So now the time has come.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Amy, what was the next piece that you wanted to do real quick?
The 3 Spruce
Thanks,
Street
guys.
project change and formal discussion.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Break your jacket.
This is over at Durkee, and I think there's a brief discussion when we came in for the new owner thing, so I'll let him, I got a bunch of extra.
Oh, I printed a whole bunch.
Okay, there you go.
So yes, thank you for having me.
Is this a lot that you showed me today?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm looking to do some work on the newly purchased property that I just moved into, not realizing that I needed approval.
Well, you were at our last meeting.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yes, so now I'm going through the formal process now that I've been educated on the process.
So this is the fence, you wanted to put
I wanted the fence and a wall and a patio, yes. So I have a letter that I've kind of highlighted some of the things. I started marking up the,
So can you just quickly tell the commission how close you are to the wetlands?
So I guess part of my property is within the 100-foot barrier, and some of my property is within the 50-foot barrier.
But the particular work that you'd like to do, how close is that to the?
So the
50?
fence, yeah, so if you look on the drawing, right, which is in this direction here, my understanding is this is the 100-foot barrier, which goes right through the middle of my house.
Yep.
Which I was not aware of until a month ago. So I was looking to, I mean, I won't go into the 50-foot from my understanding, but I will go clearly through the 100-foot.
So is your 50-foot, is your
My
wetlands
underst-
on here and there? 'Cause
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's on.
So just remember, you've got both sides to
Yep,
play with.
but the way I understand it, it goes is the 100 goes like this, and then the 50 goes, I think this is the 50.
You can see some of the dimensions on there that help a little bit
Yeah.
from the point of wetland D.
So what I'm looking to do is fence in the backyard along the property line. I was going to do, our plan up until was to do a metal aluminum fence across the right side and the back to keep the visibility to the tree line, and then do a privacy fence down the side that abuts the one house that's adjacent to us.
Okay.
Wait a minute, the one with the hashtag, the line with the hashtag is a 30-foot, looks like, not 50.
Correct.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
So I think what's helpful for the commission and for everyone is for you to put stakes where you'd like to be closest to the wetlands.
Okay.
So to mark it off so that they can see the grade as well, which is important.
Okay.
That's the one thing I noticed today is that the grade, it does slope down to the wetlands.
Mm, yeah.
So usually what we would do is you would find a time that's convenient for the commissioners to come out, and they'll just go ahead and walk you through that. And then usually at that point, they'd give you a pretty good understanding of whether they would support it
Okay.
or not, because it is work within the buffer zone.
Okay.
Sorry, I see this, this line here.
Yeah, so that was kind of how I was sketched out where the fence would go, down the right-hand side.
To follow the curve of the 30-foot,
Yes.
30-foot line?
It would go right up to the edge of it. So the way that yard works is where you see that curve, it drops from the house down. So one of the proposals I have is, you see there's a 2-foot wall there. I was contemplating doing a wall, because right now, every time I go to mow my lawnmower tips over, right? And it's a safety hazard for me to actually mow the lawn, because it drops almost 8 feet down. So that was kind of one of the things that I had gotten a quote for from the landscaper to do, was to try to bring it up 2 to 3 feet to try to reduce some of that, and then put the fence up above the wall. And then the patio was going to be right off the back porch, what we talked about last time.
Having seen the site, I think it's worthy to try and find a time to go out and see it.
Okay.
So the question ultimately is gonna be minor modification, amended order conditions, new NOI, so it's a whole
Good new NOI.
issue.
Yeah, but
They haven't closed out the previous one. right?
yeah, they haven't closed out.
But everything's already established. Grass is already established,
Yes,
you'd be
but
going
they
back
haven't closed out
in terms of the road.
the other,
Right, but you're still doing
Right.
work within the 50.
you're not getting that thing.
Oh, I know that Durkee hasn't signed out,
Yeah, so they haven't signed off.
so we've done partial.
There's new owners though,
Yeah,
since the original.
transfers,
Mhm.
can transfer.
Yeah, it's at the commission's discretion.
Right. I think that, to see it first and
Yeah,
then
but
determine
I'm
what
just
you'd like to
saying
do.
that it's,
Well, I mean,
where it
the-
hasn't been signed off yet, I'm surprised it hasn't. The bank hasn't made them sign it off,
Okay.
but it hasn't been signed off.
It hasn't signed on, and it's under the old regs, and then, but if it's a new NOI, it would be under the new regs, so. it would be-
I'd have to look up lot 30, because that's the other one that has a fence. It's not up yet, but it has a fence, and I can't remember if that's in the 50-foot from the farm pond or not.
Which one's 30? That's on the same side of the street?
The opposite side of your street, up near the
Oh,
pond.
that's Katie's, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they haven't put the fence up.
Right.
They were waiting for that.
So when you purchased this lot, did the seller not tell you that the 100-foot
I knew nothing
line
about it
went
until I
through
was
the
here.
middle of the house?
I knew nothing about it until I was here last week.
They didn't talk about?
Nope, nor did my attorney.
Shoot, for both of them.
I think part of what we.
Nor did my real estate agent.
part
That's
of
why
what
we
we
wanted
tried-
the new
Part of
owners
what
to
we
come
tried to
in.
encourage on the developer was that because this is such a fragile area, that they make sure that they tell all
Yeah,
owners or
yeah.
potential owners what, what they're getting into, basically, so there'd be no surprises.
And that's why we ask all new owners to come in and meet with us.
Yep.
Okay.
I think that's how he learned about it.
No, it's good, that's good for us to know, because now we can
Because
go
he
back
didn't-
to them and we can, tell them again.
Okay. All right, so let's,
again.
Amy, do you want to,
Yeah.
we can do an email to see when people can go out?
Always
and-
count.
But you need
Yeah,
to
so
set
let
up
me know
some
how-
stakes. He's gonna
You'll
do
probably get it
stakes.
staked pretty quickly, because you'd already spray
Well,
painted part of
future-
it.
Yeah, I mean, we'd already spray painted it, so I can
Just throw in a
stake.
couple stakes and
So
specifically
the only-
the closest to the wetlands that you're gonna be as well.
Okay.
Excellent.
Do you
And
want
then
to set
when
up a
you
time
have,
now, or?
Might as well. I mean,
Whatever.
when are you typically available?
I can make myself available whenever. Right.
Do you want to do Friday? Friday afternoon?
That's fine.
what time?
5:30? Is that late? Early?
Oh, I forgot though.
You might have something else you want to look at on the property at that time anyways,
Going to school now, so it's good.
further up the road.
You're muttering to yourself, Anna.
I know, sorry about that.
Oh, speaking of which, we have gotten a call that a lot of times everyone's talking at once, and the people who are watching cannot hear what's going on.
Oh.
So just FYI,
Well, they should come in person.
they can't make it.
Okay, so Friday, 5:30, 5 o'clock. What are you guys gonna do?
5:30 is probably better.
Friday at 5:30?
Great. Can you allow permission for commissioners to go on the property if it's before, after, or a different day, if you're notified?
No offense, you can go wherever you want to.
It's private property, so we can't, actually, so without
Yes,
your permission.
You can walk on my property whenever you want to.
Okay, great, thank you.
Not a problem.
Okay.
So it looks like I got Andrew and Anna on Friday?
I can try.
Maybe, okay.
I'll try also.
Excellent.
I can
Okay.
go
No
earlier.
guarantees.
Yeah.
Like I said, if you want to walk the property, feel free. There's some orange spray paint you can see where
What number is it?
it's 3 spruce.
3 spruce.
Is this the one next to the pond?
Yes.
No.
No, there's a wetlands right there, the depression, right
Yeah,
as
it's
you
right in
drive
the
in, it's
corner.
on the right.
It's
So
not
if
near
you're
the
going down
pond.
Grimes, you
Not
make the
Not the
left.
big pond, no, just on the
It's
right.
actually the first or last house, depending on which
Yeah,
way you're
and-
driving.
Turn,
I recommend going down Grimes because they've been digging up all the
Okay.
roads in there.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Running the gauntlet.
So you'll get some stakes up?
I will get some stakes
Yep.
up. I will go to Home Depot tonight and get some stakes.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay, that was all I wanted to try to.
yep, that's fine.
7:45, public meeting request for determination of applicability, 50 Harwood Ave, U41-10, replacement of a failed sewage disposal system, removal and fill existing in-ground swimming pool.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Kevin Ritchie with Civil Solutions, here with Frank Matrano. He's the owner of 50 Harwood Ave. Frank has recently had a Title V inspection, failed the inspection. He's got an existing in-ground swimming pool in the backyard, which he'd like to remove, fill it in, and just turn it back to lawn. So we have been before the Board of Health. The septic plan's been approved. The leaching area's outside the 100-foot buffer zone. So we've got the wetlands coming down across here, wraps around the back. We've got the 100-foot buffer here, the 50-foot. So we've kind of squeezed the leaching area in here within the, outside the 100-foot. The existing swimming pools, for the majority outside the 100-foot. There is a portion of it within 100 feet. He's got a brick patio around it, which he'll be removing as well. Access to the rear of the site's a little tight. He's got the lot line comes up here beside the driveway. His garage, a couple of feet off the lot line. So coming up this side here is a little impractical. There's no room between the house and the garage. So we've basically got to come up between the house and the wetlands.
And town water presently?
He does have town water, yeah.
And is the septic system being sized for what size house or bedroom?
It's a 3-bedroom.
Are you removing the pool to help with the septic system? Or
No,
are you
no,
just
just-
removing it?
No, the
Needs
septic
a-
pool's at a stage right now where it needs a lot of work. And we decided now at this point in our life to just make
Done
life
with it.
easy, get rid of that cost.
Yep.
And the cost of filling it in is about the same as fixing it. So we'll fill it in.
Would you enlighten the viewer of 50 to have,
50 Harwood, where it actually is.
Hartwell.
Howard, Beaver Brook, this is Beaver Brook here.
Mhm.
It's,
Wait, did you say that they had to come in through, between
Yeah,
the
so they'll come up the
wetlands?
driveway. So here's the wetland, the edge of the wetland, the edge of the lawn. So they'll be actually in a lawn area the whole way to the back of the lawn.
Because that's existing.
Yeah.
Right.
So they did also submit for a waiver since they have to
It's in
do the
failure.
access for the.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. What's the closest that the work is actually getting to the wetlands?
I guess at the closest point where they're traveling is 25 feet.
25.
But the actual work is, I suppose, the septic tank, which is 70 feet.
70, okay.
Yeah.
The toe slope.
The top of the slope's about 25, that's about the edge of the lawn, then it drops down to the wetlands, probably 10 feet, give or take, maybe a little more.
But you're staying,
So we're staying
well,
off
you're
the
staying
slope.
away from the
Yes.
established slope.
Yes.
So you're not going into the.
No, we don't want to get in the slope at all.
If anybody goes in the slope, they're gonna be.
In the wetlands.
They'll be in the brook.
It does not
Down.
sound like you, it sounds as though you've looked at alternatives for that. I don't see many alternatives.
There's no
there.
alternative left anymore with the 100-foot buffers on the whole
Right.
properties, basically, except for a small lawn.
Now, where are you going to, after you dig up the or the concrete for the pool, where are you gonna put it? Are you gonna put it right into a truck?
The majority of it is bricks, the patio is all brick, which I would
The
get.
pool's a vinyl line pool with steel walls. The vinyl line will be pulled out, the steel walls will be pulled out,
Oh,
and some concrete will be broken up. I believe the town will approve that to be, as part of fill, but there's a small amount of that, but the brick was supposed to be hauled away.
okay. But so no temporary storage on the property before you haul it away, or?
They'll do that first and haul it out first. You can put that in sequence, so
Yeah.
that would be hauled out first, after the erosion controls.
What is your concern with the storage of what, the fill or
Rubble.
the rubble?
Well, also storage of fill, any storage.
You can't do that within the 100 feet, so and your contractor will know that'll be in your order of conditions.
So
Yeah,
determination of applicability, but
Yeah.
I've got room for 1 or 2 conditions.
So what
I mean,
fill
the
are you
lot
bringing
lines tight in the back, so he's limited on, he can't really store anything
Right,
behind
so you
it.
need to
he's
pull it
he's
out-
almost
pull it
gotta go
out.
put it, store it where the pool is.
We gotta bring in fill for the pool.
Right.
What fill are you gonna use for the pool? Loam or?
Well, no, just regular,
No,
whatever.
just grade fill.
I think, talking with the contractor, his plan is the material that they excavate for the leach field, use some of that for
Right.
fill.
That makes
But he's
sense.
still gonna bring some in, but that depends how much we get out of it. My understanding is the material that's in the leach field is pretty good material, which we're digging out, so.
Okay.
So you can use it.
So this
Yeah,
is a
no, whatever
request
comes out of
for,
that it'll all be virgin sand, so that would be probably
it's
better
a
than anything.
determination of
that would be able to buy.
applicability, so,
So I'll make
and
a
the
motion
system is in failure, so, okay.
that we issue a -3 determination
Do I hear a second?
With a waiver?
with a waiver.
Thank you.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Who seconded that?
All right.
All set?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Point of
Thanks.
clarification, you're gonna issue some conditions, when will those conditions be issued?
I can probably get this done tomorrow. Do you want me to mail it to you? Does someone want to come pick it up?
I'll be here Wednesday.
I'll have it on the counter Wednesday.
I volunteer the counseling part.
Oh, okay, perfect. All right.
I'm here every Wednesday.
I'm here 9 to 1, but if I'm not here, it'll be sitting on the
I'll
counter
be
for
here
you.
9 to 12.
Well, there you go.
Thank you for volunteering. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Good luck.
Yeah,
Have a good night.
report to sign, Amy.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me. That's why I had it open.
We just
That's
started
my fault.
7:45.
Frank, I'll be right there.
7:30.
Oh, just one, okay.
when Jack was a student.
Oh, really? Oh my
Yes.
gosh.
Oh. He's the only one I know.
Oh, really? Interesting. I'll let him know.
No, don't.
Oh, don't?
Continued public hearing, notice of intent, phase 2, vacant land access from Spruce Road, R8-13-0.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Master Plat, DP -204-8, subdivision construction of 3 single-family homes and roadway construction in buffer zones. And I guess we're supposed to look at phase 4 too, continued public hearing. Notice of intent, phase 4, vacant land, access from Spruce Road, R8-13-0, Mass Department DEP 204-8, access for subdivision construction for 3 single-family homes in the buffer zone.
Amy, hold on one second. Yes, go ahead.
What office do I go to?
Right across the way, 303.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, Joe Pesnola from Hancock Associates. Where we are is, I think, quite a few of the commissioners have taken additional site walks out to look at an area in question within the phase 2 portion of this project. That includes drainage
Intermittent stream.
conveyance. I'll say drainage conveyance. If you say intermittent stream, then we'll try to work through those details. That's why we're here. I think you're in receipt of a letter from Mr. Guthrie's environmental attorney, Glenn Wood from Rubin and Rudman. And I think I want to start.
Couple copies, if anybody wants to take a look at it.
I enjoyed reading it.
Start by putting forth, I'm not going to speak for him, but I'll paraphrase, that Mr. Guthrie is entitled to an ORAD in the presumption that the wetlands were, and the resource areas were properly delineated at the time, and that they were approved by this commission. He then purchased the property. He then spent an enormous amount of money in permitting the project through the planning board and preparing plans to submit to this board, this commission, and that from a legal standpoint, that he's entitled to that protection under the process. Notwithstanding that, we understand obviously that the commission has questions, has issues, and was looking for some additional information. And I guess within the context of preserving our rights to stand on the issuance of the ORAD and the protections that affords from a legal standpoint, in good faith, Mr. Carroll did go out and gather that information and look at what was there. And what I would put forth is, from the standpoint of maybe being more comfortable with the first part, which is kind of
The first part, you're referring to phase 1, or
No,
what are you
the
referring to as first part?
the ORAD.
Okay.
Standing on the ORAD.
Okay.
So from the standpoint of maybe making the commission more comfortable in accepting that position that we're all put in because of the ORAD. I think what we're ready to present is it really doesn't matter. And David's going to explain more, but essentially the jurisdictional areas are contained to offsite, in our opinion, on the other side of the wall. And that even if we were to cast the 50 from that most southerly reach of the jurisdictional resource area, it wouldn't impact any of the proposed development. So it would be within an area of the proposed development that was currently not being proposed to be altered. So we would be able to feign compliance with the do not disturb. So with kind of that brief introduction, I will turn it over to David to kind of walk through what he found and what his opinion with regard to the regulatory jurisdictional areas that we're dealing with and what we do have that's on site proper.
Right. So to that effect, I'll talk about basically the wetland science and the regulation of the feature. As I said, you have a copy of the Mass DEP sheets. Mass DEP denotes that there's an isolated vegetative wetland, which we haven't vetted.
So you're referring to this?
Yes.
Okay.
Off-site to the north, I believe it's conservation-owned land, I think, they're under CR.
Yep.
There's a Mass DEP isolated vegetative wetland, which we walked up there and confirmed that there's vegetative wetland. We didn't actually field delineate to confirm isolation or non-isolation of that feature.
When you're saying you did this, when did you do this?
We, on the site visit with Amy Green, we walked up there and just confirmed that there was vegetative wetland. We we entertained several site visits. Amy and I went out to visit. I believe, Anna, were you with us that time?
I was at that one.
There was another event, and Carl came out to visit it. You had gone out on Friday and visited with Brian,
Yep.
and I believe you were out there today.
Correct.
So there's.
So you have good
I think
record, good
most
set
of
of
the-
eyes looking
Yeah,
at the
many
feature.
eyes on the feature.
Okay.
So that feature, it does drain out and channelizes and moves down a gradient, and it's obvious that there's stormwater drainage that occurs, channelizes, and runs down toward our site. About 15 to 20 feet before the stone wall, the channel actually.
Do you have a map that you'd like to reference as you're having this discussion? Because for me, I would like to have field points
Field
so we can look at
illustrations?
our notes. So if you're,
Okay.
let's
Do you
go
have one?
ahead and find a plan.
Yep. All right. Can you guys all see? Carl's gonna come around.
Can we just get a highlighter for a second? Or just,
Yep.
and then I'll grab my plan. So if we can just hold discussion until Amy comes back.
Do you mind if can I borrow that sheet? And
So that will be the point of reference that we're gonna highlight, so people can see kind of phases, and we can grab the other plans
Okay.
too. So it's good to have points of reference.
Yep.
And you have lots to choose
There you
from.
go. Knock yourself out.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right. I don't know if it makes sense to draw right on the plan.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. So on this sheet here, there's a Mass DEP mapped isolated vegetative wetland. This line right here is it's not a stream DEP layer. It's a hydrologic connections data layer, and there's a denotation with the data set that claims that it needs to be field verified. That it's not a stream channel. It's hydrologic connections, and it's actually mapped as terminating approximately where it does on site. To give
So not a
spatial.
BVW,
Well, so the first question is if,
because that will be my sticking point.
right. Well, no, if there's vegetative wetland up gradient of the stream, right. We're not saying that the stream heading down here is not regulated. We're
Okay.
saying that
Just want to be clear.
on the approach, so to give you spatial reference, the IVW is up here, this drainage channel comes down, and it's coincident with this topographic contour right here. Or no, sorry, yep, the low point, as it comes, it actually does come and turn around to this point. So, highlight that. On the approach, as the channel comes down, there is defined bed and bank. There's a channel, there's,
Yep.
A channel requires. to
Absolutely,
have a
right where it
stream
comes
channel
right
bed and bank.
underneath the stone wall.
as it approaches the stone wall, the channel begins to dissipate. If you were actually delineating inland bank, which is what a channel is confined by, it gets smaller and smaller, and I mean, it's only 1.5 feet at best and maybe a 1/2 foot deep, and it gets smaller and smaller and tapers down to a definitive point about 15 feet prior to the stone wall. And between this point and it also, oh, sorry, again, up here. And I can't explain why. Another 20 feet on property, it begins to rechannelize at this point and come around here, at which point again it terminates, and there's no real defined channel from here down to the wetlands. So you have this isolated break here. You have this isolated break here.
I put some red dots
Yep.
here. That's 100 feet, that's the 15 feet, and that's the 15 feet.
Okay.
Just actual scale points.
So from this point to this point, there's a span that's approximately 40 feet in linear feet distance, of which there's no channelization whatsoever. There's no defined, inland bank is defined by mean annual high water mark or first observable break and slope, of which there is neither. There's no mean annual high water in here, there's no break and slope. And you can watch the channel dissipate and get smaller and smaller to a terminal point at which it no longer channelizes. It's not that, you know, your bank cannot go from a discrete point and then bump out 20 feet to the top of the hills adjacent to it. And what typically happens in situations like this, when you approach stone walls, which are common all over the Massachusetts landscape, water tends to dissipate. This tends to serve as a sediment barrier. Sediment tends to collect on the back side of this wall, and BVWs typically form in these areas. So you normally have jurisdictional contiguity from an intermittent stream that would typically hit a feature like this, would cause a little impoundment here that would have vegetated wetland in it, and then it may rechannelize, and again, it would maintain jurisdictional connectivity. In this sense, there's no bordering vegetated wetland here either. So you have a 40-foot span of which you have no channel, you have no mean annual high water, you have no first observable break and slope, and you have no bordering vegetated wetland. At which point, inexplicably, this thing rechannelizes another 20 feet, runs another 150 feet, and then again inexplicably terminates, and there's really no evidence of discrete channelization down connecting to this feature. I can't explain why that's happening, but it is in fact the field condition. So our argument is that this is non-jurisdictional.
So when we first went out on this property, this was an area that was not shown to us. So having gone through our field notes, this is an area that we didn't walk through because was told it was all high. So feel as though that there's been some errors here that had this been fully compliant, we would have walked through this. And you can tell a lot of people have walked through this.
Sure.
So, and when we first did this, we were under drought conditions. So.
Was it declared drought condition?
Yes,
2016.
So I just want to grab my plans, which are in the other room. So Amy was good enough to pull some old notes from me prior to this discussion. So I'm going to keep that because that'll be a reference of the area that we're discussing. And then when we look through, so the best I can, so this was 11/11/2016, and this is an area that was added in.
Yep.
So this area was not walked, nor was the...
Right, that feature is actually detailed on this plan set, the
This-
feature that we picked up.
Right.
Right.
But the area, so when we look at the colored little, this, that was not shown here on, as a BVW on the other side as well. So when we kind of go through here, what we would like to do is to have you show on this original field map where that is. in terms of that area of
But
reference.
by approximation, I think you're, yeah.
Just use that course right there,
Right.
it's mid-course of the 179.
So
So is
remember,
that no
when we
issues
were
over there?
walking this, as our minutes
Right.
will state, there were no topos on this for us. And so.
On this one?
On this,
Okay.
yep. So for basically the ORAD that we looked at and approved, there weren't topos on it, to the best of my knowledge.
To my knowledge,
The final.
There-
On the
there was,
final, but
right.
not when we first walked through.
right, this was the
sites.
submittal. It
Yep.
was one of the requests upon the first visit, was to put topo contours on the final
Right,
plan,
but I
which
feel
would
as
be
though
submitted for review.
if they had been on there, and also if we knew this was an area of possible interest, we would have been guided to walk there. So I feel as though, in good faith, this should have been an area that the commission should have been led on that sidewalk on the 11th. So I feel as though we have an obligation to the wetlands to make sure that they are protected. And you're obviously to your owner, and we recognize that.
Mhm.
But feel as though we do need to look to make sure that we're maintaining this. So when we take that area, and then if you can kindly take that stream and put it on phase 2.
I have it marked on the plan.
Because BVW is not on any of this. To the stone wall. Amy, I'm going to give you these back. I do believe that should be noted.
Well, we,
There is an adjacent. Correct me if I'm wrong.
well, here's the, first of all, we won't field delineate offsite.
But you've been
BVW.
encouraged to do so.
Right, right. But this is, first of all, we don't know what this is BVW, it's mapped as ILSF, but it's
Okay.
greater than a 100-foot distance away from the property. So there's no,
So you're saying it's 100, 200 feet away, isn't this stone wall?
right, so that's, on this plan, that stone wall is coincident with this property boundary, but this linear distance here is greater than 200 feet away. So this, first of all, IVW, so IVW wouldn't have a buffer zone. And even if it did, if it was BVW that had a 100-foot buffer zone, it would come up shy of our project site. So there was no need for us to point that out. This wouldn't have buffer zone that would broadcast.
But it's flagged now.
onto
Did
our
you flag
property.
it after?
We didn't flag it. No.
My
So if
sense
you-
was the 3 wooden stakes were the bottom of the BBW.
Right, that's what our site walk on Friday is what Brian said. This is like,
Where, on this
boundary.
or at the?
On our property.
On-
Not
yeah,
on the
property.
town's
on this-
property.
yeah,
At the stone wall?
beyond
well,
the,
about
beyond the
50
stone,
feet over,
beyond
so.
beyond
No,
the stone.
the stakes that we put in at the stone wall were the terminal end of the channel. I believe there was was there a stake on this property?
No.
Then I don't know what the stakes would have been. I think that the three
What
stakes
was
would have been.
what was it represent?
Yeah.
How did Brian represent it?
It's not BVW. What it's
All I'm
represented.
all I'm asking
Brian
is how
represented
Brian represented it
BVW.
on
Brian
site.
absolutely represented BVW, and so we
Then
were
he may have
taking.
misspoke.
No,
Okay.
you
What
were,
it-
you were there.
Well, not on Friday, not when I
No,
was there on Friday.
but when we went back.
Inland Bay.
Oh,
Inland Bay. That's the terminal end of that channel. There is no BVW.
Actually,
down
you were gonna do the soils and double check.
I did.
Get
yeah.
data on.
Yeah,
So
I have,
that's the.
I have those. I can present those to you tonight. Yep.
So
So,
have
no,
those
the-
already
the
been
three-
presented prior to tonight?
No, I have a submittal of the record. So the terminal end of, as this channel approaches the stone wall, and as I said, 15 feet above, the bank tapers down to a little point and gets more and more discreet until it stops. So the one stake at the front of that is the terminal end of the channel, and the 2 stakes adjacent to it would have been inland bank, even if we presume that this is jurisdictional, to a point 15 feet above the stone wall, at which point we took tape and tied what the 50-foot no-build zone would be, and discovered that that would have no impact or
So where
bearing.
would
to the
that be
home.
on this plan?
Here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's,
So that- okay.
there's the terminal end and there's the cast of the 50-foot.
Right. So that would be the terminal end of the plot. The 2 other were the just up from the terminal end of anything that could be conceived as a channel. There were 2 flags to the side of it that would have been conceivably what the inland bank would have been, that confines the
And
channel itself. But not
Your
not
terminal
BVW.
end needs to be acknowledged by everyone. That's not in my purview to do that. So I would ask that someone who's able to look at that as well.
Yep.
Certainly not, that's not my fault.
But I think the original question was why wasn't this piece flagged off-site, correct? That was
Right.
your original question.
Yeah, I mean, if there was a resource even somewhat close to the property, I wish we had known about it.
Right. Well, again, we didn't consider, my assessment of this initially was that this is IVW and there's a channel that comes out. So this may have been a shortcoming on my part. And my understanding is that if you have an isolated vegetative wetland, it's non-jurisdictional unless it becomes ILSF, and again, it's off property and it doesn't matter.
Or if there's a connection.
Now, if there's, right, well, if there's a channel that comes out of it and the channel terminates, 20 feet above the thing, then you still have an isolated feature. It's, you have a bowl-shaped depression, which is the IVW, but during heavy rain events, there's gonna be a point at which, what discrete point in that bowl is lowest, where it drains out from, that's creating channelization, but so this is one of my questions, was whether or not, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Like, if you have an isolated vegetative wetland, and you have a little squiggly channel that comes out of it, but actually has no jurisdictional connection to another wetland or water body, it doesn't enter a culvert or go underground, it dissipates into upland, then you still have an isolated feature. It's an isolated wetland with a channel that
But do we know that there's
terminates
nothing
in up.
underground? I mean, there's been quite a few mysteries on the.
Well, that's just
property,
it.
so-
That's one of-
It's had we've had drain tiles on the properties
Right.
adjacent, so has there been any discovery? Like
Of-
when.
of what's
to
under-
ki- Yeah,
no.
to look at that. Certainly, I think after 3 inches of rain,
Right.
being in non-drought conditions, we would learn that. So, but this kind of comes back to the original question, and I understand reading the letter where you stand, but, when you look at the data for what a collateral take is, the attack that, I feel as though there's some mutual agreement here that I think you all probably made some mistakes on the ORAD, and we should have gone through the property with a fine-tooth comb. But there were some liberties taken that we thought that what was presented fairly. So our duty is to the wetlands, and so I just want to make sure that we're doing our job.
Well, in reserving our rights to stay with our initial position, we're happy to give you David's report and his wetland sheets, and for you to look at it from that standpoint. And I think if we're all in agreement that it doesn't matter to the project, then certainly we can talk about how to best resolve it.
So you're willing to have a third party review that?
Without having to dig our heels in.
Okay.
Yeah, we're happy to have it reviewed if it's, again, within
Up to
that
the-
context.
I think everyone's been out on site for the most part, so I would ask the commissioners what their thoughts are.
I would definitely want a third party.
Yeah, I agree. I disagree that it's not connected. Respectfully, it's
We can't argue that there's drainage there. That's obviously drainage flows that way. It's been calculated and picked up in our stormwater report. But our argument is that jurisdiction ceases because there's no inland bank, there's no DPW for a period of 40 feet.
I think.
Where's that water gonna go?
Right.
It
It
can
goes.
just go into
it-
the ground. It
Provided
depends if
there's no
there's
construction anywhere near it.
if there's soils.
It's a downhill
if there's
slope.
If there's a differential in soils and you have more permeable soils down in an area, it can dissipate.
Do you know if
It's
there
just
are?
on either side of the stone wall.
What's that?
It's on either side of the
Yeah.
stone wall, and
Yeah.
it goes under the stone
Yes,
wall.
very obvious under the stone wall.
The base of the
I mean-
stone wall has a drain tile, so something else is, in my opinion, something else is going on hydrologically. There is a hydrologic connection, I don't think that's in dispute. There's something at the base of that stone wall that is diverting flow. And I would also like to see a third-party review, because I'm not convinced that
Most
it's
stone walls have
non-jurisdictional.
small stone put underneath them to support them, to keep them from sinking. And if chances are the water was coming, they knew it was coming down, they probably put sort of a French drain on either side of the stone wall to keep the stone wall from heaving.
And that begs the question, if it was historically connected and then it was undergrounded by, some other impact. I think a third-party review is probably warranted at this point, just given what I've heard about the site visit that occurred. Just being in good faith, showing the commission, areas that warrant attention. That's where I stand.
Okay. I'm just, to question, even if there was a French drain, how would that make it jurisdictional? I mean, if we, there's the mystery of why
If it
is
was
anticipating there.
historically,
but-
if it was historically
the
an
way the old
independent
timers
stream,
did
then it's
things.
jurisdictional.
Is that true?
If the historical condition was jurisdictional and then there was a change made, that's consideration. There is a time frame for it.
Well, let's get third party.
Yeah, I think a third
Yes.
party would clear it up. I think that's
What are you
on
thinking?
that.
Amy?
Chuck Herron did the 10 Fort Pond, isolated one. Brandon Fonoff is actually the wetlands guy for Green International, but Green has agreed that we can go to him directly to cut the price down. Oxbow, I don't know if you guys have any other names.
I'd go with either Brandon Fanu for Oxbow Associates. I don't know Charles Carey. I'd prefer Oxbow or Brandon, your
I'm
choice.
gonna assume Oxbow's probably not gonna have the time to do it, but I can ask all three and
So with
see what they come back.
your permission, just come up with an order of go, first, second, third, so it sounds as though Chuck would be the third, we feel comfortable with all three,
Yep.
But when I get the prices, is that,
and availability.
Yeah.
Because this would need to be done quickly in this
Yeah.
condition.
Right, yeah, I did definitely, because the
Yeah,
the data sheets that are recorded are heavily biased, well, not biased, but heavily founded on herbaceous vegetation that's
Sure.
in those areas.
Yep.
The carpet of hay-scented fern, the
Right.
partridge berry that's there, the
That's
Canada
why we
mayflower.
tried to
Right.
walk around it,
Yeah,
so.
right, yeah,
um,
I'd like to see that.
I would, in request of that, I would ask commissioners, unless you request us to come back out, that we would not go back out so that we're not treading on
Okay.
any of that area again, because you could see that there's been.
Yeah, a lot of people have been out there,
in
there's been a lot of
So
feet
we
in
want to
there,
make sure
right.
that.
And I don't want any footpath misconstrued as channelization,
Exactly,
because
exactly.
somebody's following the same
It's-
course
it's
back
already-
and forth through the,
Right, so that we want to make sure
Basin
that
and-
outside of
Right.
the third party.
Well, in that regard, I have prepared a letter on my findings, scientific and regulatory findings out there, and I would ask that my letter would be
Oh, absolutely.
given
Yeah,
to the
we would like to
peer
take that data tonight, or.
Yep.
yeah,
for
can you
the-
send me a PDF of it?
Yep, I can send you a PDF.
Yep.
Do you guys want print copies? I don't know if the whole
I would-
commission
I
wants
would
copies
certainly-
or
I'll
I
take
definitely
one
won't
copy,
put
but
those
yeah, I
on.
would leave them, because she could give those right to someone if you don't have digital. Right?
Yep.
But there is no, do you have a plan that sketches out just even generally where this area is that I can send? Just
No, I mean, there's only.
by
yeah,
11,
yeah.
X marks the spot or something?
We
So
could
they,
just give
know.
you this one,
Yeah.
and we'll make the same markings on a PDF so you can electronically.
Okay, yeah,
send
I
it.
just want to be able to send a map to these people so they know what they're.
I can put, yeah, and my two data plots, one was recorded in what would, I mean, if you envision what would be center line, one was taken 5 feet on the north side of the wall and one 5 feet on the south side of the wall, one upgraded and one not.
Does anybody else want a copy of the report?
Yeah, I'll take it.
Carl?
I would give the extra one to be done to Amy, because she can pass them off.
I have a question for you, Julie. You're suggesting that historic data was altered by the construction of a farmer's wall, then goes back there. So how do you determine that?
It's not easy. It's not a straightforward answer. And there is a statute of limitations on it as well, as far as like how far back you can go. That might be difficult, but if you have something that is a jurisdictional area, human alteration, that, underground groundwater or, what have you, it's still.
Yeah, more of a mechanical sense, right? Modern day.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
It does.
And so that is
the
a
Wetlands
thing,
Protection
so
Act
we
was
just
enacted
need
in
to get on the same page.
1970.
You got much more to say on,
No, so I think-
phase 4?
We,
Lincoln
we'll,
70s.
I think we'll defer
Yes.
conversation on phase 4 because
Yeah, we're fine
right,
with
right now we can't get into phase 4 without phase 2. Depending on how this goes and how much this might take to resolve this issue, we may entertain revising the
Right.
current notice of intent to exclude this whole area so that we could proceed with phase 2, which would just be this section, and then phase 4, which is down here. But that's just gonna
So we
depend
will
on how
ask-
this shakes out and what.
So we will ask Amy to be forefront of this, to make the comments and connections in the morning, to try and see how quickly we can have a third-party review secured.
Okay.
So, but that's, you know, paramount that you send that electronic data to me.
So at this point, no need to call DEP about,
Circuit rider?
yeah.
I don't think so. We know that they're there till 9 o'clock tonight if need be, but I don't think we need it now.
We're fine on giving you your time back on phase 4. Is there a site visit that hasn't occurred on phase 4? Or have we exhausted that? Because if there's vegetation that's dependent on that, we don't want to be working on that through the winter and not have essentially a valid site visit under our belt on phase 4. So that's the only thing that I bring up relative to phase 4,
I
unless
guess
I'm
we
out of
would
line there.
ask you. Anything been missed on 4?
Or 3.
We don't believe so, and we walked
Commissioners-
4 a little bit.
Have we totally walked 4?
Not totally.
Well,
Anna and I did
We walked
a
4
good portion.
within the context of the NOI. We
Right.
think that we've walked 4 completely during the NOI process.
And we walked 4 again when you thought you might be coming up through that area.
Right.
So, well, we certainly saw the lower portion of it.
Oh, from off of Grimes, yeah.
Off of Grimes, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a different situation in that.
Yeah,
That
I've
brings
walked the off of Grimes, and then I don't think
Meaning
I've
there's
done
no
I've
upland
walked
that's off-site.
clear
Yeah.
cut, right.
Well, if it works for you guys, maybe Dave and I can take a walk out there and look at phase 3 and 4.
I think because
More closely.
that's gonna be a little
Yeah.
bit of time, because I've done it, but disjointedly.
I mean, obviously,
Right.
if someone wants to go with us, fine, but
Yeah.
maybe we just tramp.
Yeah, that's my only concern if we're going to move this
No, I
out
think
into
it's a
the
very good point.
winter.
So I
Right.
would ask Amy to try and see if she can find some time to work with you to just
Yep.
go
I
back
gotta
through.
bring up another point that came up tonight.
Thank you.
We had a homeowner come in here, and it was never explained to him that his house was sitting in the buffer zone.
Hard to imagine.
But I'm just saying that it was the first he knew about it, was after he came in,
3
like we
Spruce.
requested. All
Said
the
neither he
people to
nor
come in
his
and-
attorney mentioned anything about it.
Or a realtor.
Or realtor.
Or any of the people who came last week.
We haven't got a certificate of compliance, so it's still
Yeah, but he was never told that
No,
it sat.
It's in his chain of title.
On the
So his
registry of
attorney
deeds.
No,
is.
but we had discussions,
3 Spruce is the first one on the right?
yeah.
Yeah, he's sadly mistaken. I walked that lot with him personally. So I'll meet here again with him if you'd like. We can have
Well,
that
we just,
discussion.
I think the point was that that's what we were told.
Yeah.
And that we know that we told you folks that it was very important that these folks that come in and buy these
And I'm-
houses know exact. He said, I had no idea 100 foot went right through the middle of my house.
Yeah.
Because now he wants to make modifications, and now we're like,
And this is what we're,
He wants a
this
fence
is,
to contain.
Well,
the
it's,
dog.
it's
what
good
we
that,
got.
it's good that you brought him in here, isn't it? Because we explained it to him, but clearly they don't
we're
understand.
very happy he came in. But
Yeah.
it's just, we don't want to hear that people are coming into us not knowing where the jurisdiction is. That's really.
I really can't help it if they lie to you. There's nothing I can do. We explain everything to them. We show them plans
Okay,
that
well-
show,
well,
those
we-
plans have stakes,
We're
conservation
not
stakes.
saying you didn't, we just want to.
And they
We're
have
just saying
signed
what
something
was
saying that they
represented
received the order
to us.
conditions.
I
We're not
understand.
saying
That's
they
why I
didn't.
suggested he lied to you, and I'm sorry that happened. We show them plans that show where we're going to put the stakes in.
Yeah.
We submit those plans to these buyers so that they understand. The last thing we want is misrepresentation on our end.
Sure.
It pales in comparison to what happens if they don't understand where their 100-foot buffer is.
Yeah.
But misrepresentation, when we put these wetland stakes up, in some cases, 11 or 10, 11, 7, that jet into what appears to be lawn area outside of the silt fence that we've used, then we enter into misrepresentation. So I can assure you, we explained it to them. Our broker explained it to them. And then, of course, they're given all copies of order conditions as part of the purchase and sale agreement. So for someone to come in here and say that they didn't understand, then we must claim that they're ignorant at that point. but certainly not something we're misleading people on, I can assure you of that.
Okay.
And on that frame, I believe that we're up to date with all the new owners, except for one on Balsam, who you've been chasing.
Lot 8.
And I didn't know if you wanted me to actually write them a certified letter
Hmm.
saying you're supposed to come in.
We can
Or
just all
just
go
wait.
over, we'll set a time and we'll all go knock on the door and say, hi, we're here,
Perfect.
we're your friendly conservation.
Because they'll hound us to take the wattles and the silt out, or the silt out.
Or we
and-
just reinstall them again.
All right, so.
You're never leaving.
Yes, I've
And
mentioned
the,
that multiple times.
The posts and signs behind, like Three Spruce, all that area, I don't think they're in yet.
Okay.
They need to get put in. And I told Brian the monitoring report for the farm pond and the invasive species control.
Okay.
It hasn't happened yet.
Did you guys
It might be
write
getting too
all
late for
those
invasive
down
species.
for
No,
all
because,
those ands?
well, I
At
can
least
offer you
4.
this on Spruce, we weren't coming in for, to close those out.
No, I know.
We were merely chasing our list of residents who take a year to get here. We're more focused
Okay.
over on Balsam, 9, 10, that area.
Right.
The Spruce people, we just started, and most of them were pretty proactive, so that helped us a lot, but I don't think we're quite stabilized in all those areas with some erosion and what have you, so we're not prepared to close those out. That's most likely a spring project for us, or
And we'll
maybe.
get on the farm report and the invasive species report.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Informal discussion, proposed work at U44-20-0, 3 Harvard Road, Patriot Beverage Injection Molding Enterprise. You're right in my backyard. And I grew up around that place.
What's that one?
Thanks for bringing that up. If you didn't bring it up, I was going to.
What was it then?
Vinegar Works. Started out as New England Vinegar Works.
Oh, okay.
Vinegar.
Yeah,
Vinegar.
they were where that priestess building is with a huge mound, and they had a huge tank
The lagoon. I
storing
haven't been
vinegar
there
in
in
it.
a long time. Like, when was the last time we cleaned the lagoon?
I don't think you want to
We
clean
don't
the
even, we don't
lagoon.
even call them those anymore.
Wow, I got them all back next time.
Thank you. Is that a vegetated lagoon?
Yeah, it's all water.
It's half the size of what it was
very important.
35, 40 years ago.
Yeah, because there's no activity going in there. All right.
Did you find the skating rink that was down there in the building?
Skating rink?
There was a skating rink, a roller skating rink in
Okay, yeah, they might
the older
have-
part
I'm
of the
sure they'll know
building
where
at
it
one
is.
point, in the Cooper's area where they made wooden barrels.
Yeah.
That's probably long gone by now.
Well, I'm just,
Been covered by other things.
Concrete. All right, so if you all could introduce yourself to the commission, that would be great, and just let us know what your kind of task is here for this project.
Sure, I'm Ian Moon, I'm the project manager with HNTV Corporation.
Yeah, I'm Paul Myers. I'm with HNTV and do environmental work, environmental management.
And I'm Bob Grove, I'm the general manager for Injection Molding Enterprises.
Chris Naylor with HNTV. I'm the stormwater management engineer.
How many of you?
Senior engineering consultant.
What's the name?
It's Howard, Needles, Taman, and Bergendorf.
Is it? Well done.
Yes.
Now I know.
I could have done that.
And just as a course of record, you all work here in Massachusetts? You do sites in Massachusetts?
Yes.
So you're familiar with all our compliances and regulations?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, so we're the engineer, and we're here to represent Injection Molding Enterprises, which Bob is the general manager for, and Patriot Beverage, who are the clients for the project.
And all of you have been on site and know it well?
That's correct.
Okay. I was just like-
So you're the general manager for Patriot Beverages? Are you the general manager?
No, I'm the project manager with HNTV,
manager.
the engineering consultant.
Okay.
Yeah, Bob is the general manager for.
Injection Molding Enterprises.
Injection
Business that's
molding.
moving into the building.
Okay, no one's here from Patriot Beverages.
Well, we're all part of the same co-op of companies, so I'm actually representing.
I-
both.
Yeah.
So you're-
Yeah.
so you're
We've never been
inject-
explained, it's never really been explained what's
Because
going
ultimately,
on
we'd like to
here.
know what the use is, and so we have the
Sure.
historic data, but trying to look forward to what's going to work in here. So if you can tell us a little bit about use and
Maybe the other company, we have no idea what's going on there.
Right. Okay.
So just
Okay,
maybe a
so
5 minute, just.
Maybe I can help you with that. So It's the former Very Fine site. Of course, it was purchased by the co-op that owns CPF over in Air. And they opened up Patriot Beverages last year, which is a bottling operation in the 20 Harvard Road building across the street from 3 Harvard Road. So they're currently using all the facilities on there. They're operating the boiler plant that's there, using steam, and also in the building that I'm in, Building B, there's also reverse osmosis, osmosis filtration.
Do you have the buildings here, that as you kind of tell us the backstory, you can
if
point
we
to us
look
so
at
that we know?
Harvard Road is here.
Yep.
Patriot is on this side of the road, and Injection Molding Enterprises is on this side of the road. So we're,
You see the intersection with Sanderson Road.
Sanderson, so the train,
so the train, this is the railroad track here. The work that we're proposing to do now is in the area of this siding. So HNTV has been hired by us to engineer a refurbishment of this section of track and an extension of the track, another 350 or 325 feet beyond its current location, so that we can receive rail cars of material. So we're going to be injection molding, so we'll want rail cars of plastic material in order for
this
our
doesn't
process.
connect with the section at Middlesex that they just redid for,
No.
so totally different track.
Yeah, that's unrelated to this.
The siding exists, I looked at it tonight when I came, there's a siding that exists along the
So
back
So where are
of
the
the building.
scales
This
on this
siding
map?
has been
So where are the
there.
scales, over here?
Yeah.
There's the scales in front too.
Okay.
I don't know if they're being used, but they're in front of the building.
So
The
it's
scales are
inject-
no longer being used.
No,
they're-
just as a point of reference.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So injection molding of plastic, you saying? What
Yes.
kind of plastic?
We do preforms for blow molded bottles. So-
HDPE or
PET.
PET, okay.
So water, soft drinks, those types of things.
The clear bottles.
So those products will go over to the
Yes, they'll
bottling
go, they'll,
facility? Is that what's gonna happen?
yes, so CPF over in Air, they have blow molding machines over there, so they actually take the preforms, blow mold them into bottles, and then fill them. So products that you see, all Pepsi-related products that are out there, Pure Leaf Tea, things like that. Those are all products that come out of CPF and New England Hot Fill over in Air. So they'll be the recipient of the products coming out of our plant.
So you're gonna use those across the street, Patriot will use those bottles too, or?
Patriot's a little bit different. They don't do blow molding at their facility, so they buy pre-purchased, pre-blown bottles and bring them in by the pallet and then fill them, so they're
So
currently
they're just,
bottling.
they're just bottling.
Yes, they're just bottling at
So-
this point.
So you'll be having product brought in through the rails. Are you also going to discard your waste by rail, or is it?
We really don't have any waste to get rid of. We mold the products and the products go out shipped as finished goods. Any small amount of recycling that we might do will be stored interior in the building in Gaylords and then shipped by truck off to a recycling facility.
And you referenced the steam molding that's in here?
There's no steam, well, the
There's no
steam is, the boiler room is on site from when it was very fine.
And it's
so
not being
steam-
utilized anymore?
It
Or
is, they
it
use
is?
it at Patriot as
Okay.
part of their process over there.
Okay.
So is Patriot actually they're actually actively bottling at this
Yes,
point?
they are. They're bottling a product called Life Water over
Okay.
there right now.
Doesn't look like there's much activity. I mean, there's been more activity in the last couple of months, but
Right.
doesn't look like there's a whole lot
All
of
So
trucks
there's-
going in and out of there.
It's been a little bit of a slow startup getting everything going, but they will be running more often as we go forward. They're getting on a more regular schedule. They have some different things straightened out. And,
Is that the wastewater issue?
the
The
wastewater
plant?
Yes, so if hopefully everyone has noticed that it has been nowhere near as bad as it was in February, March, before a lot of work was done to that plant to get rid of the smells. Now, unfortunately, it is a wastewater treatment plant, however, it only processes wastewater from the bottling processes. It does not handle sewage or anything like that, it's strictly
So
just
it's like
processed
contact
water.
cooling water?
Yeah, and clean out, so when they do wash downs, when they wash down their equipment, things like that, all that processed
Floor wash
water,
water.
it can't
Right.
just, exactly, it can't go directly down the drain, so it has to be treated.
Can you review, if you're finished with the
Mike,
process?
quick question though, is there any wastewater that's leaving that's going to
The
the
wetland.
lagoon, the wetland?
Yes, so
There is.
it's not, only the effluent stream after it's processed at the wastewater
And
treatment
what are those
plant.
numbers like daily?
I have no idea. That's not part of my process, but, and.
So
it's-
how
it'll
long
be-
was this lay? Because that permit would have had to have been a new permit.
The NIPD's wastewater, or discharge of wastewater into it.
Right,
You
because
probably
Very
know.
Fine was closed for quite a bit.
It's not our client.
No,
Okay.
no, that
So
would
you're
be something.
you are discharging nothing into the wetland.
No.
It's
Okay.
Patriot that's
It's- yeah,
discharging
it's
it.
pa- that's
And I actually
actually-
did look up that permit. They did change the name. They were operating for a bit without
As
changing.
far as I
the
know,
name.
that should all be up to date.
Yeah. I looked that up not too long
Okay.
ago.
Okay, thank you.
So again, the goal of this exercise is basically give an overview of the project, which I think Bob just did, and then just talk through the permitting approach we're taking to make sure we're on the right track with
Okay.
respect
We
to
appreciate you doing
that.
Yeah, could you go over what the colors represent there?
Sure. Well, just to give a more of a technical overview, I think as Bob mentioned, the goal of the project is to rehab and extend the existing track siding that's out there. So there's an existing siding off the Fitchburg main line now, and what we're going to do is extend that into the parking lot, which is on the western side of the property. So in order to get the tracks into the parking lot, we're going to cut back the existing pavement and replace it with track ballast and the track itself. And then there's 3 light poles that we're going to relocate to the opposite side of the proposed tracks. And then there's some utility modifications we're doing. So there's water lines that we're relocating. There's storm and sanitary lines that we're moving, all to make room for the new tracks.
Wait, so how is this related to that?
So what
You're
this
still
is
on
this
that
is
buffer.
one line that we split into 2 views. So
Okay.
basically, this is King Street, Sanderson Road, and then this is the siding, and then this match line connects over here. So this is the eastern side of the property. This is the
Okay.
western side of the property.
Okay.
So this, you can see the tracks continue through here, and then this is where the siding ends now, and this is where we're extending it to the west.
Do you plan to be able to do like a loop where you'd go and come in on?
No,
No,
there's
it's a dead end.
Just dead end.
correct.
siding.
It's a single-ended siding now, and we're just leaving it that way. We're just extending it a few hundred feet to the west.
So you can store cars, basically, right?
Yes.
Right.
So this is
And-
the way it is now, because the tracks end right over there, and you're extending it to
Yeah,
there.
right here. So
Okay, so.
exactly.
Okay.
So the only other component of this is there is a railroad signal improvement that we're making too. There's a safety modification we have to make for the railroad protection system. And so what that involves is we're going to install some cables that connect to the existing tracks over here by King Street and run those cables to the signal bungalow, which is on the opposite side of King Street.
With your limit of work, so as the train extends, we're getting closer and closer to our limit of work is shrinking in terms of to the wetlands, correct? I'm just trying to look at where you are there.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
these
the-
these
Is it the
color
blue, the
codes
50?
show, well, they show the, well, here's the.
So your limit of
delineated
work
wetland.
is this black,
Yes, this thick black line here is the
and
limit of
then
work.
your blue is your 50?
That's
Yes,
correct. So this,
so
this red line is the wetlands
you're-
here.
So this section is where we stop at the 50, and then we're going closer to the 50 in this area here.
That's right, that's
Okay.
correct, right. Yeah, there's small parts of the project that come into the 50-foot buffer. The other color codes indicate the 100-foot
Mhm.
and also the 200-foot from.
For your
there's
river.
Yeah, right, for the riverfront. There's a perennial stream,
Yep.
as you're probably
Yep,
aware
we
down
know.
here. So, yeah, parts of the project kind of meander in and out of those various buffers. So we wanted to kind of depict where the buffers are in relation to the limit of the work.
And what exists now where the extension of track will be performed?
It's primarily existing track that will be, and correct me if I'm wrong, that will be rehabilitated or kind of upgraded, and then there's parking. It's essentially pavement that'll be replaced with,
So what I'm saying, this, sorry, I may
Yeah,
have
that's-
misunderstood. So this section of track that you're adding,
right.
what exists there right now?
Pavement.
So it's just pavement?
It's just pavement.
And does that pavement have drainage?
Yes.
So it is properly stormwater controlled
That's
at the
correct.
moment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, essentially from the resource area, you have the wetlands, and then you have an existing, which is the Fitchburg Line Railroad,
Yep.
and then you have the siding. So, and the siding that will be extended. So the siding that's going to be extended is literally isolated, away from the wetland resource area. It's in a paved area between, that's sort of sandwiched between the facility and the existing railroad track. So it's really
As a
just.
point of inference, so would you own that private section of track, or is that taken over by
MBTA.
MBTA owns that? Okay. So then you
within
lose a
your
lot of
right-of-way.
your jurisdiction.
Is the 1,500 from the lagoon shown on there, that wetland?
Yeah, the lagoon, let's see, we're over
Is
here.
over there.
Right,
Yep.
over here. So we have the buffers offset from that as well. Yeah, we understand that was designated as a.
Right, yeah, you
BBW.
can't, so that's a good point, Amy. So how close are you to that?
Well, part of the project, it's within the 50-foot buffer of part
Of the lagoon?
Of the lagoon as well, yeah.
Well,
actually,
no, it's
I don't believe
it's
we
outside
are.
of the 100-foot buffer for the
Lagoon.
lagoon.
Oh, well, this is the lagoon over
This
here.
is
That's right.
this is
Yeah.
the lagoon
Okay.
50 foot, and this is the lagoon 100 foot here. So this is our limit of work. So we're technically
so
outside of that.
Okay,
Yeah,
that distance
so
right
we're-
there.
yeah, we're-
Yeah, I'm sorry, I
so-
misspoke, yeah.
You can see, actually, I don't think you have this, do you have a copy of this?
So
drawing?
like
Yeah.
wells have
Yes.
bigger
You might wanna
zones.
show that to
Doesn't a
show-
treatment like that have a
It
bigger
just gives a
zone?
bigger view of the area,
I don't think so.
the
Yes.
overall parking lot and everything, and the
Well, certainly
relationship
not under
between
the
the
bylaw.
lagoon and the track and everything.
No, not ours.
Right.
But I thought mass, like stormwater and that had a larger, okay.
Yeah, so I misspoke. It's within the 50 of this wetlands here,
Mhm.
part of it, but not within the lagoon area.
So you have the small issue of them working in the 50-foot no disturb area, turning pavement to ballast.
Mhm.
So that's gonna be a waiver
Correct.
you're gonna need to consider.
Well, they're gonna have to
Right.
consider.
Yeah, I mean, effectively and essentially, there are no direct resource impacts. It's work within the buffer in an area that's currently kind of an industrial parking area, for lack of a better, or pavement area, for lack of a better phrase.
But Paul, on we did a site walk just to kind
Yeah.
of check the wetlands. There was a catch basin that looks
Mhm.
like it's gonna be removed, and, because I think that's right where the new
This
track is
square
gonna
is?
go.
We're good.
Yeah,
Right. So
And that must all connect and go over to Reedy
Over to the
Meadowbrook
lagoon.
somehow?
Right.
Oh, into the lagoon first?
Yes.
Okay.
So, the intent is to relocate those drains, but not remove them, so that there will always be a point to collect drainage and move it towards the lagoon versus just having it roll off towards the wetland.
Is that comparing apples to apples when you're collecting drainage from a parking lot to collecting drainage from a train?
So the train really doesn't leave anything off.
But if there were to be a
Other than-
spill, or if there were to
It's-
be a line break of oil, like that's gonna go directly into, what's the basis of keeping that from spilling, breaking, toppling over, all those scenarios, and then going, discharging into the lagoon?
So there's a berm along the track, so the track is actually higher than where the siding will be on the side toward the wetland. So that prevents any of that material moving that way. We're dealing with all dry materials, so.
Right, but we recognize there's
Storm
braking
drains.
systems on
Yes, on
train
the
units
train,
that,
typically
you know, there's fire, there's, you know, break
Yeah,
of a hose
breaks
line.
and things like that, so. One of the things we discussed was under drain in the area of that, and moving
be
that and
self-containment.
draining that
Yeah, you
to
can-
the
Yeah.
catch basin, which goes to the lagoon. There's a grease trap in that.
Right, it would have, you'd
location.
have
Or water
to
Before it
keep
goes
that
to,
separator that,
yeah,
yeah.
Right,
yeah,
and the
before
catch-
it goes into the lagoon.
And that's what I think would be helpful is, like, on a site walk, to be able to see that, so that would be helpful.
And the
So-
catch basins themselves have deep sumps and hoods, basically
That's
collect
not
any.
gonna keep, let's be realistic, it's not gonna keep it from going into the lagoon if something drastic happens.
If something
Yeah.
drastic
Yeah.
happens, sure.
Right, but this is a new use, so we're looking at something drastic. So, as
The-
part of our protection.
That
And
area
also-
that is pavement now is draining into a catch basin that is connected to the lagoon that has an oil water separator upstream. So it will go through that oil water separator. And then what we're changing is changing that section of pavement to ballast that will have an under drain that's connected to the same catch basin that goes to the oil separator to the lagoon. So it's really not that different from what's happening already.
If you're relying on a piece of infrastructure for oil containment instead of just regular parking lot, you know, if there's already rainwater in it, I mean, I think you know what I'm getting at, like from an SPCC standpoint. If you
Right.
wanted to use like a storm scepter or an oil water separator's containment, you also have to consider how much rain it is also going to contain, so you don't top it over. It's just a consideration.
Sure.
Is your raw material, is it bead, like
Yes,
resin
pellets.
bead pellets?
Mhm.
And so hopefully the cars will be covered, but I've seen
Yeah,
many
they're hopper
sites
cars, so they're
where
completely enclosed.
bead is all over. Like, do you have a
So-
stormwater permit, or do you have no exposure? Do you know, or
Right
maybe
now.
you know?
I don't think we have anything at this point.
Okay.
Right, we do, right, and that's part of this, to get all
So
of
it'd be
that stuff.
stormwater permitting for your industrial stormwater permit for your operation will require you to either have no exposure or control the bead, because the bead will get into the stormwater system and will cause plastic pollution, like in the wetlands.
Right. So along the track where we offload the cars, there'll be a manifold system there,
Okay.
which will also have, we're working on that now, is whether it'll be concrete or pavement underneath that, so that nothing will be exposed directly to the ground. Something that can be cleaned up and
Yeah.
be able to dispose of.
Will you have a canopy over the unloading facility?
No, it'll be
Bead will
exposed
just
to
migrate.
the weather.
Like it's not
Yeah.
like an
It floats.
oil or a brake
Right.
fluid. Those are more your
The other thing is,
concerns.
our
Bead is
pellets
not
have a
really-
specific gravity of like 1.38, so they're heavier than water, so they will sink when they get in water.
Oh, the bees will
Versus-
sink?
Yes.
Oh.
Transport.
Yeah, they're,
So they-
they're not like polyethylene or polypropylene, which is lighter than water, which will float and just go everywhere.
polystyrene.
Yeah, these are heavier than water, sink.
It's
And
something
also-
for your consultants for your stormwater permit.
I'm sorry?
It's something for your consultants to deal with
Yes.
your industrial stormwater permit.
Yes.
Well, the T also tends to spray their ballast with herbicides regularly, but they're supposed to not spray near wetlands, but.
I have not seen them do do it it in in our
If it's all
section.
stone, it's not gonna be a.
There's
issue.
plenty of weeds growing.
Yeah.
No, I mean, they come through with their 5-year and plans and their yearly operational plans routinely, so.
Okay.
I don't know if you wanna discuss
So we-
how they're gonna meet the public interest piece of the waiver?
I think
Well,
By
alternatives, first
improving-
they also have to have alternatives to being in the 50, so we'd have to see,
Taking a lot of trucks off the
looking
road.
at options to not jut into the 50.
Right.
And you're also cutting into the 50 over there, but that's existing, right?
Yeah, I think, I can probably let Ian speak more to the alternatives, but the location itself is an extension of the existing, so the alternatives are somewhat limited in terms of what they can do in order to, provide for that siding. But
Are you able to be a little bit shorter?
I think you're getting close towards the end. I think that's the sidewalk, we would have to look at that.
Yeah.
But as an
I'm concerned
alternative.
to the proximity to the lagoon.
Okay.
But
Yeah, because
we'll look at that later.
the only impacts within the 50-foot buffer, they're really just grading and removal of pavement. There's a section of guardrail that we're installing right up to it. So it's really that removal of pavement that's the big component of what we're doing within that buffer.
What,
If we
removal
were-
of pavement and placement of a guardrail?
Ballast.
Instead?
Ballast and a
Placement of
guardrail,
ballast.
yeah.
Okay.
So if we were to cut back that limit, we'd be shortening the siding, and I think that would affect the the
Do you happen to
project
have a
itself
picture
in
of the
terms of.
existing ballast?
Yeah, somewhere.
It's overgrown all.
I was just curious.
It's
So would
the
you
old
keep-
ballast, actually, a lot of the old ballast along the track has to be taken out and when the refurbishment is done, only because it's been there so long.
Right,
Since
that's what
the
I was
60s.
thinking,
It's
if you're
actually
dealing with
sunk
an
into
existing
the-
or you're creating a whole new ballast.
Yeah, we have to do a new bed because the existing ballast is all buried into, it's just sunk into the
Right,
ground.
over time,
And
yeah.
the ties
Right.
require replacement as well because a lot of them are rotted and stuff.
Oh,
So I mean,
remember
this
the smell we
siding
had?
is the original siding that Verifine had back
Remember that?
in
Oh,
the
yeah.
'60s. And I have an
Amy,
old
you missed
aerial
that
photo.
part.
I can remember when they
When they
were
put the new
loading
track down and they
applesauce
left
and
Yeah.
all
Multiple
box,
talking.
small
the ties
boxes
there.
on
There's
the
Yeah.
freight
multiple
car
people
there.
talking. You have to
Yeah.
be sure to
So
remember.
there's, the siding's been there for a long time, and I don't think it's ever seen any refurbishment since it was installed originally.
What is the frequency of trucks coming in, or sorry, trains
So-
coming in and out?
We'll probably have about a couple of deliveries a week. We'll typically go through about 4 rail cars or more a week of plastic going through there, so that'll have to be exchanged. We will have a rail offloading system. Part of that is to keep that inside the building, try to mitigate any noise that we can from that activity taking place. What it does is we're going to eliminate about 1,800 trucks a year off the city streets just by receiving the materials by rail. So it does take a significant amount of traffic off the road.
That's a good thing.
Well, especially in that area where
Yeah.
it's so
It's
dense.
very congested.
Congested, and you have all the trucking companies, and there's a lot.
As a commuter rail rider, though, what will be the impact on the commuter rail?
Actually, nothing, because all the car movements will be at night. They do it on off hours, and it doesn't really affect them.
Occasionally, you might have to stop and drop off some plastic for them.
So this siding has to be long enough so you can back your cars in and then be able to pull them forward to unload them at
Or
4.
they'll be actually backed along the manifold system, so that manifold will have stations for 4 cars to be offloaded, and then those 4 cars would be swapped out. And it would replace them, so.
So will you always have cars?
There'll
at some-
always be
There will
cars
always
sitting
be
there.
some
In some
cars
state.
there and some,
Yeah.
okay.
We will be a 24/7 operation, so.
Changes my numbers.
And part of that has to do with the length of the proposed siding itself. So that limits the amount that we could cut back and remove that small impact from the 50-foot buffer because we need that length for the rail operation.
4 cars, so you need 4
Exactly.
cars, so that's basically the,
Yeah.
an economic basis to have the 4 cars. And so like 3 won't work, for example, based on what they go through. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yep.
Well, as long as you,
Cut through 5 trucks out a day.
as long as you prove to us that you have actually looked at alternatives and showed us what those alternatives are, that's what we require in the waiver.
Well, and for public interest. is
And the
big-
public, in
Well,
addition to
the
the.
demand for, obviously, for recycled plastics. I thought there wasn't as much.
No, actually, recyclers do a pretty good business on that stuff. A lot of it, especially with PET, is a polyester fiber, so can be used for fibers. So a lot of that goes into that industry for carpet, clothing, things like that. There are some new processes out there that are actually taking PET from the bottling industry and actually, they call it a wash, but they reprocess it and clean it up and everything, and it can actually be used for food grade containers again.
Is any of that, notice that, is it the neighboring town, they put down some sort of a plastic on the road and put crushed stone on top of it? I saw that happen over in Harvard, and there was a recycled plastic that they were using.
Oh, I
It
haven't
was
seen
like
that.
glue, I guess, and they put crushed stone on it.
I haven't
So it happened
seen
this,
that application.
happened this summer.
What does that do?
Well, it resurfaces the road. Rather than digging it up, they just put like a layer of stone on it. It's like they used to use tar and sand at one point.
Right.
just to seal up the road.
Well, our goal was to explain the project to the commission so that you folks understood, what was going to take place there, and explain it in terms of where the resources are located, and that the project itself is not directly infecting any resources. However, it will be, essentially be work in a existing paved area between the facility and the tracks, and just get your guidance on what would be, given that the limitation of how much impact there is, what
So is the
process we
ballast
should
in
go
the
through.
limit of work? The new ballast
The
that's
new
being
ballast?
created?
Yeah,
It's
it
all.
Yeah.
will be.
Because the ballast basically supports the tracks, the rails and the ties.
Okay, I didn't
So
know
it
further.
forms the foundation for the track structure.
Who are the other companies involved down there? There's you and Patriot. Any
Yes.
other companies?
No, on that particular siding, no, just us.
No, in the
In the
whole-
complex?
Yeah.
Oh, no, just us and Patriot.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that all it's going to be?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you use the building on the other side of the boiler room? Is that gonna be utilized too?
Right now, that's just dead storage. There's nothing in there taking place. There's still
Is there any
an old,
connection right now?
an obsolete.
Like in terms of water, drainage? What goes into the lagoon? Both sides of the street?
And the street?
Just actually, the drainage into the lagoon is only from our side of the street. That I can see on any drawings, that the only thing that's connected in there is our side of the street and whatever runs off the road.
I was
But-
thinking the roof drainage from that building across the street must
I
have gone in.
don't-
It's gotta go someplace.
I don't believe it goes in there from what I can see on any of the
Hmm.
storm drain drawings.
Okay.
There are several septic tanks around the property, some
Right.
of them very large.
Yep.
And it may be just going in there and then
Just a gray
leaching
water, could be a
out.
gray water tank,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, so,
Glad to see you using the facilities. Hate to see it be a rat trap.
Yep,
Yeah.
I agree.
yeah, there's a lot of activity at Patriot, like I said now, and with, plans to expand over there as well, to activate more products and utilize that building more, and for us, using
How
the-
come you put the addition on top of the pre-stressed building?
We needed the height, actually, for the new equipment that's going in there. So in order to process the material, we have to pre-dry it, and so that we don't have any bubbles or anything in the plastic.
so would you build like a kiln inside?
Ozone?
No, there's actually a dryer, it's a material dryer, so what it is, it's a heated desiccant bed. It blows
Okay.
dry air through the
Yeah.
material. As the moisture comes off, it gets absorbed by the desiccant and
Okay,
then released back to the atmosphere outside of the building.
okay.
That way.
Do you need an air permit?
There's no VOC
Like a
emissions or
minor
anything like
or
that.
HAPs
no.
or,
No, there's nothing like that. It's all just moisture that comes out. There's no chemical content or anything like that.
Are you subject to SPCC, like your equipment, do you have reservoirs greater than like 55 gallons, so that you would have
Well,
SPCC for your site, and then
Yeah,
you would
so
have a spill
spill
plan?
containment, yeah, so spill containment, there's no outlets from the floor within the building.
Okay.
So we'll have spill kits and things like that on station so that we can absorb the oil.
So you have like
and
spill
contain it.
plans and procedures and
Yeah.
stuff like that in place?
We're writing them as we speak. We haven't
Okay.
actually started up yet, so we're
Yeah,
still.
no, fair
we're
enough. I'm
still
just trying to
reviewing those.
like get a handle on stop gaps for,
Right.
because this was
Things that
developed
would
a
keep
very long
us
time ago.
from keeping you going, yeah.
Right.
Right,
Or
so
things
we
that
have
could be
spill
improved
water
in the
protection
public
from the
interest.
outside and then
Right.
spill containment and things on the inside.
All things that will help your waiver.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly, so
Mhm.
public
Just by
interest
getting
is what
trucks
gets
out,
you.
that's basically boils down to 5 trucks a day.
Yeah.
So I think you'd have to show, it's a valiant effort, but we still have to keep going with that. The trucks won't be enough, I don't anticipate, so.
Well, right, and so, and to piggyback on that, a parking lot has runoff, but it's not an industrial activity. A
24/7,
siding is an
yeah.
industrial activity, and so, showing, while you're designing your stormwater, while you're designing the project, being sure you can capture a spill adequately rather than having an oops at 2 in the morning
Mhm.
because, I mean, things happen, right?
Yeah.
You know, hydraulic lines fail and things happen, and so, you know, and that would be something too from a stormwater permit that you would need to address, but,
Actually, the rail cars brakes work on air, don't they?
They're air brakes, yes.
Yeah, so not
So-
hydraulic brakes.
One of the worst things with rail cars is the actual braking systems themselves, because everybody uses asbestos for their brake linings.
Right.
So that's-
Delicious.
That's, that-
the asbestos
whether
out of
it's your-
stormwater and
your car or the rail.
Okay, so
Yeah.
at some point, we're happy to come and do site walk, you know, when time permits. We, as always, like to be part of the process. Appreciate you coming in. I think certainly that area, to walk the lagoon, but also to kind of see that, that back reach area for your expansion of your track would be important, I think.
Yeah.
Well, in terms of overall process, I mean, you know, with, given the nature of the work and the
Mhm.
location of the work, the lack of kind of, particularly, any direct resource impacts, what do you folks see as far as, like, the process? Would this potentially qualify for something that would, like the RDA process, or do you think it would?
RDA?
No, I wouldn't go that way. Definitely notice of intent, because
Yeah,
you're still
especially
gonna have to
around
work on the
50.
waiver.
Right.
If you were out of
Right.
the 50, that might be different, but
Yeah.
where you're.
So even with the waiver, it's still?
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's what kicks in the waiver is the
Right.
50.
Is that- yeah.
Yep. So, yep, just go back and read that. It's,
Okay.
the waiver portion will take some time for you to really create, enhance. Yeah.
And the bylaw requires a butter notification and all that for
Mhm.
an RDA as well as a notice of intent, so, you know, really save a lot of time and money. By doing
Between the
that.
two, all right,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, that's, I was
Just more forms.
wondering if, for instance, if we received a waiver on the 50, if then for the other process, if the RDA would be
It's part of the same.
applicable.
It's part of the
so
same
that's,
application.
so the waiver comes after.
Oh, it's
the-
a post,
so-
okay.
Right, so the RDA would be if we, you know, like it's typically used if someone has a failing septic system that's already within the 50,
Right.
not, like, so you're converting a parking lot to an industrial use, and so it pretty clearly, for me, trips the NOI threshold, and then you do an NOI, and if you're doing work within the 50, which is a no disturb zone for Littleton, then it's the, you know, the waiver,
or-
and so we're guiding
or
you towards
otherwise.
the public benefit of, you know, using a old industrial building, you know, taking vehicles off the road, but then also really thinking about what you can do to help, you know, improve the water that's leaving your site, for example. So, Workers Credit Union
Right,
recently
that would be
received a
one to look
waiver.
at,
And-
language and other waivers that
Yeah.
have been
And
accepted.
so it was improving this, they improved, drastically improved the stormwater that was leaving the site, and so that, you know, so it's things like that that can get you there, but NOI for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Thank you.
So, just to be clear, like when I first approached this project, I saw the removing of impervious surface for pervious surface as a positive thing. I'm hearing that's not going to be work in our favor. Should I not even discuss that, or?
No, that can
It
be a
can
positive.
definitely, it can be positive, it's
thing.
gonna be part of your waiver.
As
You
long
still
as
have
you
to go through the
control
process.
industrial materials that are heading there.
Okay.
But no, that's
Okay.
positive.
Okay.
Also, I'm wondering, I mean, could it be considered almost like repairing that? Is it
No,
degraded?
because you're changing the use.
Hmm.
Parking around.
Well, the existing, but not the new part. That's the
Yeah,
hurdle.
I'm
The
saying
new part is
maybe
within
it's
the 50,
improving
so
the
that's
existing.
But they're
that's
still
the
within
hurdle.
the 50.
Yeah.
So
I
the-
think improving the existing outside of the 50, I think we'd be having a different conversation.
Yeah.
Well, they should have less runoff because of the stone and stuff, the water will go down through the stone and re-infiltrate.
But we
The only
had
thing you want to be
discussions,
careful about is you're sitting on top of the town aquifer. That whole area down there
Reverse
is the
protection.
town aquifer that sits underneath that.
So just to be clear, the The change in use, the existing use where it's an industrial facility, parking lot, that doesn't count as industrial use versus the
that's
rail
what I
siding
was-
extending into
It's,
that?
it's a different use of that space.
Okay.
You know,
I was
it is,
just
yes,
thinking
it's,
this-
it is zoned, it's different, it's a
I was
little
thinking about
different
use
than
about the
zoning.
overall
Mhm.
site, but,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's what I was actually going to ask, because kind of getting back to kind of what you were mentioning about, we're changing the use from
You're not
something-
changing the zoning, you're changing the features on the site within our jurisdictional area.
Right, right, right.
So yes, no, this is it's very different from a zoning conversation.
A zoning
It's- yeah.
connotation, okay.
The other thing is you said that the railroad was gonna own the siding?
Yeah,
And
they
so-
always,
Yes.
they always do.
Should they be the ones that's filing this?
I don't know, that's kind of an odd, because we're
It does- yeah,
applying
the-
for
the
a
permit
license.
gets
They
transferred.
already own the property,
After
or
it's
have right
issued?
away to the property, because we're applying for a
Oh.
license to actually do the work on MBTA property.
They
As
own
it is
that
right now.
existing siding that's there?
Yeah, they have a right
As
of
an
way. to-
easement, yeah.
They-
So
they
there's,
probably
that's
would
actually
do it
called
for
out
you.
on the original
Then
drawings.
you're gonna be
It says
giving
where
them,
the
you're
easements
just
are.
extending that.
That's correct. So the purpose of the project is to serve the injection molding enterprises group as
Right.
opposed to the MBTA.
Yep.
They're really just the ancillary owner of where we're
Right.
proposing some of the improvements.
And if you ask
They
them
want
to
none
do
of the
this,
cost,
they
none
would,
of the
wouldn't do it.
liability.
yeah,
They're not gonna
it
do
would
it.
be
There's-
forever, it wouldn't, okay.
There's no benefit to
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
to do this other than
Yep.
there's some improvement to
They
their
can charge you for
infrastructure.
using their
charge
tracks.
themselves.
They'll
Yeah.
charge you for using their
And we'll
tracks
let you
to
guys know
deliver.
there's a lot of other stuff
Right.
to discuss on the agenda.
That's what'll happen.
So, just in terms of the waiver and the impacts from the 50-foot buffer, if we can remove all work from the 50-foot buffer, then we don't need a waiver.
Right.
Right,
That's
correct.
right.
But I guess.
I think to
what-
do some, I would encourage you strongly to do more research on the waiver and look at historic events of others, like the credit union, and look at the waivers and see if you can really meet that.
Is that document for the credit union, is that available online?
I can get it to you.
Yeah,
I'm
so
sorry.
Amy can, yeah.
If you don't have to impact the
information.
50.
Send me an email
Yeah, that would be the
Yeah.
best.
Well, I'll send
That'd be
you-
the best.
thank you.
If you can stay out of the
That'll
50,
be easier.
no impact, that's the best. If you can't, because you need a certain amount of cars stored, or whatever it is, to
Or you
run your
can't credit
business,
it or-
then you go for the waiver.
So
How
there's
would-
still,
Sorry, how would you like us to demonstrate there's no impacts to the 50-foot
Well,
buffer?
that, in due respect,
can't-
that's up to you guys.
Yeah.
So that's not, we're not
Taking
here
truck-
to tell
taking
you
trucks
that.
What I'm
off the
asking is,
road.
yeah,
That'll
what,
be your
Yeah.
limit of work.
So that
motion
example
purposes.
for the
Yeah.
workers' credit union, where they took an existing commercial facility that was basically just dumping parking lot water completely untreated. You know, they drastically improved the quality of the stormwater in exchange for being able to work within, you know, a small portion within the 50. They reduced impervious surface.
Mhm.
So those are some things, and it's very site specific, so it's hard to, you know, you
Yeah.
know, it's.
But we may be
it's
able to
up
find
you,
some
but-
similarities between what they did and what we're doing.
Right, and
Right.
and it's a relatively new bylaw, so
Right.
there are few cases, but we're happy to discuss it,
yeah.
discuss things.
That was
Sure.
one large scale
Yeah.
Well,
commercial.
they added a
act.
part
Right.
of a building, added part of a
That-
building.
that's the only
of a
one.
building.
That is the only one, that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
there's limited examples, and so.
but it sounds like that they reduced impervious area and they also introduced a treatment train for that stormwater.
Yeah, they
For treating
they
them.
did,
They
they
did a lot
drastically
of
improved the
mitigation
existing.
plantings.
That's
It
right,
was-
they
it
had
was a pretty high
plantings
bar.
too, they
But
addressed
it was a different
invasive
situation in the
species.
area.
Right, understood.
And you're taking trucks off the road.
Yeah. Yeah, that's-
Yeah, not to beat a
We've
dead horse,
checked
but out of
that.
curiosity, so if we were to get out of the 50-foot entirely,
Mm-hmm.
and there wasn't a need for a waiver at all, so given that there's no direct impact to resources other than you were working in the buffer, so an RDA would not, an NOI would still be required in that case, or potentially not, or?
I would think a full notice. of
Yeah, I still
intent.
It's
feel
not
like
the-
the
'cause the
scale,
stormwater's gonna
yeah.
become a big thing.
It
Even if
is.
you're outside of the 50 foot.
And the scale of the project, it's still within the 100. I feel like it would still trip an NOI.
Yeah,
I would have a hard time, but
This is
I
all,
mean.
is this riverfront area? Where's the 200 foot?
Yeah, there is a river, there is some
And
work
it's
in
the
the
town
riverfront still,
aquifer.
yeah.
Yeah.
And especially where
Be
you
hard pressed.
don't actually own it.
But it is easier to not try to get a waiver. Like,
Yeah,
that is easier.
yeah, I was just, thinking if we were to be, outside the 50, and it really then was just therefore subject to the standard,
Yeah, but how many
process
feet are
that
you
if-
going into the 50? 10 feet?
Well, I had
Right now
to
it's-
scale it, it's not very much, but.
Yeah, it's,
Well,
let's say
that's
it's 10
something
feet or
else to
so.
consider too.
But, yeah, I mean, if we were to get out of the 50-foot entirely, if we can work the project so it's out of the 50, I was thinking that if it were just subject to the standard, permitting, that would, given that we're not directly affecting any resource area, that would that qualify for RDA and going through that process instead of having to do the full NOI?
It's gonna cost,
RDA is, it's,
RDA
really
is-
there's a difference in the form. It's,
Yeah.
It's-
you're still gonna need to do all the stormwater because of the bylaw,
Mhm.
and industrial use, commercial use.
All right.
So,
Okay.
you still have to notify the abutters. You're still gonna have a public meeting and or hearing.
and you still gotta pay to have it advertised in the paper.
Mhm.
So it's,
It's not very different than the NOI.
When do you need us to file the NOI to get onto the next hearing for discussion?
Like Wednesday.
I can send you the dates. I think I might have sent them to you,
I
but I
Yeah.
can send you the dates for the rest of the year.
The next meeting's September 24th, so next week, basically.
Okay.
Thereabouts. I mean, I guess confirm with Amy.
in other words, get on the stick.
Yeah, the other thing is, I mean, given, again, I mean, the nature of this project and the site itself, that it's essentially work in an existing paved area that's sandwiched in between nothing, really. It sounds like you folks still want to do a site visit?
Yeah.
Is that going to be scheduled? But what would you think about in terms of schedule? Like, how long would it take to get you folks to get out there to do?
We have to wait for the notice, correct?
No, you can you can go out and look.
You said it's right down the street from your
Before we have an
house, too.
application.
We
Yeah,
generally,
We make it out pretty quickly, like within.
Yeah, okay.
we generally like things staked though, so that we know.
Yeah.
Or spray painted.
Right, the spray paint.
Or
yeah,
spray paint on the
painted.
stick pavement,
Yeah.
so you can see what you're
References.
actually
Right.
talking about.
Okay. Yeah.
So it
Okay.
depends how fast you get your act together and get it staked out.
I mean, we're on site visits on weekly basis.
Oh,
I mean,
okay,
Yeah, we
okay.
get out pretty quickly
Should we
to,
coordinate
at
with?
least a few of us.
Yeah,
With
Amy
Amy to
will send
schedule?
it to
With
us.
Amy.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Notify.
yeah. Try
Yeah,
not to
yeah, that
put
would be
anybody out.
very helpful, yeah, like in terms of just schedule and, trying to hopefully kind of expedite things in terms for the project, since it's,
Is it holding
not
up
overly
startup?
impacting.
No, we'll be able to
Receiving.
put material in our silos through bulk trucks to start.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So, but eventually, by January 1st of next year, we'd like to be receiving rail cars.
Okay.
All right, so we'll coordinate with Amy about getting you folks out to look at it, and we'll get our paperwork together to get
And paint on the
the
ground.
next, and paint on the ground.
There's not much we can do if there's not.
Right, you don't see where
Yep.
things are. right?
And especially probably working out where the 50-foot no
Yep.
disturb area is,
Right, okay.
not just where you're working.
And how
Yeah.
far into the no disturb area you are.
Right.
Just because it says no disturb, it's how, if you're only going 10 feet against 20 feet or against 50 feet.
Mhm.
So we
Unless
could
they've
mark
worked
out
it.
the 50-foot buffer and then our limit of work for
Yeah.
the site visit, and then you could clearly see one line versus the
Yes.
other, and that would be a good visual
Yeah.
cue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Welcome.
folks, very much.
Yeah. Ah, the feels, boys.
Hang this on the wall.
Amy, do you have a copy of the plans, or do you need that?
No, I think it's still a work in progress.
Okay. Oh,
Matt, you gonna
informal.
I have no
come
place to
speak to
file it
this?
yet.
Huh?
I have no place
Lot
to file it yet.
16A, Field Lane,
Yes, sir.
named it after yourself?
Well, it's named after the field that they.
Thank you for seeing us. We're here.
Sorry we're running so late.
Oh, well,
Long days for everybody.
Fair tonight.
Yeah.
Well, you have a street named after you, Pickard Lane. There's a Pickard Lane in town, too.
Is Andrew still here?
Yeah,
Does he
there's a
have
Hudson
one?
Lane too
Yeah.
left.
Okay.
It's on the other side of the family.
Thank you for seeing us. We're here asking for a minor modification. You'll see the drawing in front of you has the red, which is the approved house plan, and the gray is the proposed house plan. We have reduced the setbacks off the sides, increased our distance from the 50-foot no disturb by moving the deck way over, reducing the width of the house on the, if you're looking at it on this drawing with the field up on the top, the right and the left-hand side. The gray is the proposed. So we have this box flipped on the lot 15, and we're trying to change the house plan a little and make them not all look the same.
Wait, so the wetland line, oh, I see, okay.
You'll see the wetland line.
It crosses one corner of the property.
Correct.
Yes, way down, so.
Correct. So we've actually increased significantly with the new plan, the distance from the offset to the wetlands.
I don't know, I guess I just don't see significantly, because you still have the deck or something jutting
Yeah, the
out,
deck
right?
is pushed over by at least 12 feet.
Yes.
And the width of the house on that side is reduced by 4 feet?
It was,
The boxes are 30 feet deep.
it was 6 feet, so initially this lot was an open space lot. We weren't gonna use this lot right here, we were gonna use lot 12 and 13. Since we use those lots as open space lots now,
Oh, right, I remember that.
Right.
we're using this lot right here. This lot had a smaller footprint, the width in the front. So to accommodate any type of house, we reduced the side width, the actual width of the house from 64 feet to 52 feet, which instead of moving the house towards the back, we move it towards the front.
Planning board didn't budge on that 25 feet.
We did get
No,
that.
we got it reduced to 15 feet.
We got
which
that
the
reduced,
plans-
that's why we
Got it.
moved, we were able to move the house forward.
Oh, right, the
Um,
gray, sorry, the gray's name. Yeah, great.
And the reason, and that's why this lot, it's a little bit smaller on the sides. But this house right here is essentially the only house that will fit on that to accommodate a 3-bedroom house. This is the same house we did on lot 4.
And 7. The yellow house and the
lot-
gray
yeah.
one.
Yep.
Right, okay.
So it's just a deeper footprint from front to back. So that's why we moved the house towards the road more. It has less driveway. And we were able to move the deck towards the center of the house instead of towards the left of the house as well.
Wait, the deck looks more to the right if you
But-
face.
No,
The
the red
impervious area
is,
is increasing.
the what?
Oh,
The
I see.
impervious area is increasing.
The impervious area increased by 240 square feet.
Correct.
Which is equates to less than 0.5% increase in.
And where it increased is further away from the wetland area, which is the bottom left-hand corner of the house.
Okay, because the field lane is the front of the house.
Correct.
What is your roof? You guys don't have gutters, right? It just goes to drip lines?
Yeah, so
if I recall?
the ridge line, half of the ridge line, so essentially it's 112 square feet if you use the ridge line from front to back, if you cut the house in half. So it's an increase of 112 square feet, which is 0.25%, according to the engineer. Which didn't change the stormwater calculations in
any way at all, compared to the square acreage as compared to 112 square feet.
Now, you don't have the 50 or 100 marked out on this.
It is on.
It is.
David,
We-
do you have the other plan that,
Shows the yellow on it. I have it here as well.
does that one show it?
I couldn't see it on my,
Is it,
when I printed it.
It starts on the, it starts on the left corner
Just
right
barely
here.
on there.
Hmm?
Yellow.
Yeah, there you go.
Just barely make it out.
I have it here on
Is
my
it-
phone
is
if
it-
you want to see. It's right there, the
is
yellow.
it this right here?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I see it. I had to take the other papers out from under.
Oh, so it's all outside of the 50,
Yeah.
Yes.
but just
Yeah.
within the 100. It's funny, we call this a field change. And, oh, somebody else want to see this, 100?
I found it on mine.
Okay.
You guys wanna see it?
Yeah.
And then this, what's this, the slope like on this lot? It looks like
So
it's
it slopes from,
gentle.
it's a gentle slope. The garage has to be on the high side because it's a smaller garage. If you put the garage on the low side, top of foundation between lot 15 and 17, there'll be 4 feet of concrete showing. If I put the garage on the low side, which would then
Nice
equate to,
design on the concrete.
Yeah.
right, but then
Okay.
which would equate to either a landing inside the garage and then steps, which would eliminate one bay or a large portion of the garage. Having the garage on the high side, then you can have minimal concrete on the high side and either have a step down on the left, which will match existing contours of the existing house that's there, which, you know, keeps the slope and contours, you know, blending into the lots a lot better with the, you know, if I had the garage on the low side. It also, it would impact the handicap coming down from the asphalt down meeting to the 1% from front to back on the sidewalk on that side as well. It makes for a huge hump in the driveway and almost makes like a gutter line down the driveway right there as well. If you have the garage on the high side, it's a more gentle slope and you can match into the existing sidewalk that's there now.
Are you guys building this or someone else
Yes,
building
we
it? You
are.
guys
Building
building
it,
it,
yeah.
okay. I assumed that, I just want, I know there are a lot of different people.
How many houses you got left, lots have you got left?
4.
This is one of 4.
And the whole project?
Yeah,
Mhm.
that we have left, yeah. There's a couple other lots that are, another developer has that he hasn't started, he has 3 more, I think, 2 or 3.
2.
And then we have the over 55 that, we're just getting started on.
So you haven't touched that yet?
I have
Yeah, we have 4 up.
4 up there, and then there's gonna be 4 affordables that have to go up. So, we're almost half, you know, essentially half of those are taken, you know, accounted for right now.
Well, are there any questions? Now I'd like to make a motion that we approve this as a field change.
Second.
Do I hear a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, guys. You guys had a long night.
Yeah. Can JJ send me a final plan of this without the old thing on it?
Yes,
Just
yep,
showing the
it's
new
already
stuff.
staked out, on there, so he has the, points already on the computer, so we can send
I'll sign up on the building permit.
okay.
Guys have a great night.
No, you can keep it, thank you.
Thanks, nice to see you.
You bet.
I guess we need to go back to administrative discussions.
Yes. So, last call, does anybody want the MACC handbook? Because I gotta submit that.
Yeah, I think they already asked.
So everybody, yes?
Oh, wasn't there a question
Use
about
yours, whether we could use yours.
Yeah, whether we could use your password. Did anyone try
I
that?
didn't
I
try
think you
that.
sent an email
Oh, wow.
asking for people
Yeah.
to try
Yeah,
it.
I still didn't try it.
I'll just order everybody a copy.
Okay.
Is it a lot of money?
It's $15 for you.
Oh, okay.
And then if
I
you
think
don't like
that's
it
fine.
by next year, we can.
All right.
blah, blah, blah. 30 Taylor, which is the long, skinny Idlewild parcel. They had actually two things. They're in for their certificate of compliance. They did a septic that was for a new sewer system. That was one of the filings. And then the other one was just basically getting their parking worked out. So they have a basin at the far end of it. It's all stabilized. I had them clean out the catch basins. So they looked all good to go to me.
Who's buying it?
No idea.
I understand that Idlewild bought it initially, didn't they?
Yeah, it was Napoli holds it now, but it's been for sale, I think, so they're probably just getting it ready to sell.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve certificate of compliance for 30 Taylor Street.
There's two of them there.
Oh, and 204-749 and 204-761 at 30 Taylor.
Talk about rail sidings, that's where my grain used to come in.
Really?
We used to take it off the rail car right there.
No.
Would anybody like to
Wow.
second that?
I'll second.
Great.
Okay.
Paperwork, huh?
Okay.
Oh, there's two things here, is
Yeah, because there's two different.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Should we vote?
Named twice.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Wait, where were we favoring?
Those. Your motion. It was so long ago. The Congregational Church has come in with their certificate of compliance. It didn't get time to put on tonight. I was going to do the site walk. Does anybody want to do that site walk? It was a kind of funny site with their little basins.
Did they improve the handicap thing? It looks like it's still pitched.
I don't know.
Wait,
I haven't done my site walk yet.
But I mean, that's what the whole
That was one of the whole deals.
deals.
You want to hear something funny? I actually just parked there for the town fair, and we ran into the people, and they just started telling us all sorts of stuff. And yeah, so there's like a new black patch right there.
Yeah.
They were like literally doing the landscaping right there off the edge, and they said it was.
But it still looks, I guess the reason they had to do it was pitch too much.
It
or
was,
something.
yeah.
No, he said they did the correct. They were talking actually about it, and they were talking about the Conservation Commission. I didn't volunteer any information, but there was like, we had to do all this, and we had to do all that, and we had to, get this, get this level again because it wasn't pitched properly, and there's two different tones of the asphalt, so you can tell there's a new like black patch over it.
Yeah.
So, in my untrained eye, they
Dug it out. I know they dug it out.
Yeah, and there's like a swale now behind it,
Right,
like
there's a
a
couple of them.
retention ditch back there.
There's a major drainage that comes from across the street that's near that little house, and it comes right through there. It's a huge
Yeah, I
pipe
think
that comes
DOT
through.
did that right. I don't think they
Yeah.
did them any favors. I think that. So the other thing I had a question about the Congregational Church was I think for the original filing you waived the fee, but I'm not too sure you can. Do you want to keep doing that? I don't know if you can, really, for the certificate of compliance.
How much?
The bylaw just says that you can waive the fee for work that's being done for the benefit of the commission on town property, like the Scouts or the Conservation Trust. I think it gets a little
So we probably shouldn't
hairy
waive
to.
the fee there for the
Well,
certificate
I
of
think
compliance.
then you gotta carry it one step further, because they negotiated with us up on the Church Meadows too.
Well, if anything comes up.
I'm just,
But yeah,
one- one hand washes the other. And I think that's where some of that maybe came from.
That could be.
So what do you wanna do, folks?
I think we've already given them a break, so it's just certificate of compliance. I think they could probably pay that. How much is?
It's $100.
That's not very much.
No, it's not very much.
They'll be sending the collection box around.
And did you have something you wanted to say about town meeting and responding to what's going to be on the warrants?
I just thought that maybe next meeting we should look at the warrants on the town meeting and see if there's anything we want to provide input on.
It's a good idea.
That's just one thing I can think of is so I was down at Selectmen earlier, they were talking about modifying some of the new bylaws, the senior bylaws, and so what I would like to talk about is we're having these, sewer necessitated by high nitrate and the impact of enforcement. This could also be a reality with TMDLs and impaired waterways under the Clean Water Act. And if we have TMDLs, we have to act. And so I think while the discussion is occurring about some of these bylaws that waive aquifer protection, perhaps we should have a conversation about it and see if we have opinions that we want to put forth to the selectmen for town meeting.
Because that is also being addressed in the MS4 permitting.
Yeah. Okay.
That they're getting ready to submit.
Okay. Yeah, so there's another, so
Yeah, I'll put it on the agenda and
okay.
you come up with something.
Yeah.
If that seems appropriate.
Something we should discuss, and I mean, if we don't have opinions or don't want to put forth something.
Actually, I
fine,
was
but-
wondering if you guys wanted to hear from the MS4 consultant. Is it Weston Sampson? I can't
Weston
remember now.
Sampson,
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
If you would want
Yeah.
them to come in, I think are they downstairs tonight? Was it on the agenda, or was it the next?
They were down, but those were the sewer folks,
Okay.
which are different people.
I thought maybe they're
MS4
coming into the next one.
Okay.
So I can also see what time they're coming in if they're ahead of us.
I didn't notice that any MS4 wasn't discussed, but
maybe it was the
sewer
24th.
was.
I didn't realize they're pushing for a waiver for aquifer protection. Is that what you were saying?
So the bylaws they don't have to
Which bylaws?
demonstrate,
The,
like the senior, so for certain types of development that are considered a benefit of the town or something that the town wants,
The low
they
income-
can bypass aquifer protection, certain aquifer protection standards and not have to do, certain analyses and that type of thing. And I have not taken a deep dive. I'm just aware that this is a thing, and
Is that for the I know there's an over 50 in the Cooper. What are they planning as a low income development over the aquifer?
So there's
Down by the high school, new high school, there is,
Yeah.
there in behind where
Yeah, I've seen
Weber's
that. There's
property.
wet. It's wet there. When I was working with the alumni committee, speaking with people about where else in town might be a good spot for a field, and certain parcels. So that was one parcel that came up, and they're like, "Oh no, that's way too wet." But now we're having a senior. So and so it came to my attention through just kind of looking at it in that fashion, and then, looking at like Spec Pond and TMDLs
Right.
and drinking water, and the fact that Mass GIS will avoid mapping sensitive resources on certain ag land. Jim has made me aware that it's not all ag land that they don't. But I've worked on many projects where ag land is just excluded from, certain buffer areas or what have you.
Right.
And so I just given all the development that's occurring, given the conversation that's happening about some of these bylaws, I feel like it would be good for us to at least look and potentially provide input to the selectmen to the warrants at the town meeting. Basically. And there's a hearing, planning board's having a hearing at their meeting, public hearing at their meeting on September 20th regarding the senior bylaw and
Right,
reworking it. It sounded, they had a few good thoughts tonight as far as what, what they were trying to accomplish versus, what maybe the bylaw is allowing and like how to.
What you were talking about as far as bypassing things, that reminds me of the 40B, because they just bypass.
The 40B and and
Right.
there's nothing we
We're the
can do
only
about
one-
that one. But if it's
we're
our
the
own
only one that
bylaw,
had anything to
like,
say about it.
yeah, that I noticed that about the. Yeah.
So, any other updates that you have?
Two other things. We can do the 73 Hartwell later because that's of no rush. The Hartwell Avenue Conservation Restriction Site Walk should probably be done kind of soon, like maybe before the next meeting, if possible. Especially the beach volleyball court area where she needs to decide what restoration she's going to do, and probably want to see it more like this time of year. So I don't know if anybody wants to do it. Maybe even next Friday. Did you already get something this Friday? Or
Saturday?
can push it
No, I can't, oh, I think it was New Hampshire.
into October. Although I won't be here the first week. The 21st, Friday the 21st, or is that just,
Okay.
or should I try you
Somebody
guys?
else can do that?
Try you guys again on the 24th. All right, I'll bug you again on the 24th, and you're really getting down to it. All right, why don't, we can put it off. And the last thing was just what Matt had done.
Oh, so, the ideas, again, just got a couple ideas. So if you have time to look at it and just give feedback on content, you know, just kind of throwing a bunch of stuff at it to give it form and shape. Oh, yes, all right. So it's two-sided, you know, two-sided, one-page idea. And so the thing we talk a lot about is kind of branding, you know, so people understand. This is really the only thing I think I've ever gotten from the town. You know, so, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you guys have seen anything from like other departments as well. Is there a general sort of little tin look that we want to go for as well, just so at least there's a vague consistency? So I thought maybe just Conservation Commission at the top, a little bit of info, and then general sort of outline.
Well, Littleton Electric, light and water, look, the bills are the same.
Oh, there you go.
But I haven't-
But we don't want to be a bill.
Yeah,
We
they
wanna
kinda
be-
do their own
we wanna
thing.
be informational.
They do kind of do their own thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, Park
this
and
is
Rec
the
looks
only
different,
information.
but-
That's true, yeah.
Do they have like, they do a newsletter or something?
Not
I'll look
really.
at that too.
They do their like booklet.
They do their registration
Yeah,
stuff.
different newsletters.
All right, so I'm not sure if that, we can
Rec
really.
seems to change with the administration,
Yes.
whoever's, I mean, they were hot to, when we traded land there, they were hot to put a track, put fields in behind the track, and then I haven't heard any more about that.
So maybe we can come up with our own look then. So again, you know, here was the old one, so I started, you know, taking stuff out of this, you know, obviously very text heavy and kind of with today's attention span, you know, the more icons and the more info we can just get there to stick. And so I found, this was supposed to print front and back, so shame on me, I think I killed a tree here. But if you want to look at this is someone else's Conservation Commission and just the way that they did their sort of one pager. I think, so what, the other thing I'd need from folks is just graphics. So if there's some good pictures that have been taken on these 1 million site walks, that just might, you know, get the point across, you know, just the different types, you know, resource that we deal with potentially, or, you know, people, smiling faces, doing happy things. You know, again, some way to interface with people where it's
Filling wetlands.
you know, all the
people filling the wetlands.
Now,
kind of more
I
the
guess,
positive spin as well.
are we gonna have it like a brochure format?
No, I'm thinking like this,
Or just a page, okay.
like a one pager.
One page.
This, I don't know.
This is kind of old fashioned, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, I'm just kind of like I
It
said.
is
get-
text heavy. I would really agree with that. Like I had a hard time getting through it.
Yeah,
a bit
very
And I
more-
understand the material.
getting
I
a
mean,
bit more
that's one
graphical.
thing about this is that I always like getting this. It's like, oh, it's
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, it's
bright. And
yep, right. It's short enough so you feel like you can get through it in like 10 minutes.
And
Yeah.
really, again,
But the
so-
problem is, if you're trying to give off information, it does
well,
get text
but
heavy, so it's.
so
Yeah.
at the bottom, you
It's
know,
a balance for sure.
really they hit them at, you know, who, what, where, why sort of thing, and then resources, click on all these links sort of a thing. So really what this is geared towards are those folks, the Durkee folks who come in and just, I don't know what's going on, I don't know what to do. Can I even mow my lawn? You know, just these questions, you know.
Or I was
should-
given a stack of paperwork and just told to sign, which is what you do at a closing.
That's-
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
And
you
then-
don't even know what it is, but
Acknowledged that, okay, maybe I had this paperwork, but.
Right, easier way to contact, either way to get information. You know,
so
just
it's
sort
also
of-
it's both for people to pick up at the desk there,
Sure, yeah.
or even online, so that they
You
can
know,
click
I
the
was
links
thinking,
directly.
I don't know how much room you got in the kiosk.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea too.
If you had it
Yeah.
both, you'd have to print it twice, but you could post it in the kiosk just so people want to read something that's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would put a link to the leash law too. on there, if we're gonna do things like that.
Well, usually the regs are posted about dogs and all that stuff.
So any ideas and feedbacks? Oh, and maybe more to Amy than anyone else. Is there some way we can get just a handy generic sort of drawing? Because it seems like we get a lot of these, and it's a house, and it's right through the 100-foot buffer, or it's right up against it. Just to kind of show people, if this happens to be your house, these are the things you should know. So that's kind of the point here on the back would be. We just have a little schematic. Here's a model house. You need to come talk to us because.
You could even just simplify it by having the house be a box and just put in 50, 100.
Yeah, I guess so.
We would need permission, I would think, to use anyone's like specific
Right, no one's
information,
specific.
so-
Would just be generic, but.
Either that or use a specifically nice expensive house and show the line right through it.
So anyway, over email you can just shoot me back some ideas, whatever, and I'll try and get a more graphically appealing version going. So.
Something else. Oh, now we put spring 2018 up
Just
here.
so we knew when it was done.
Oh, okay.
So if there's an update later in life,
So this isn't gonna
won't
be
be a
quarterly
newsletter.
thing. Okay,
This,
all right.
this should just be the one pager kind of fact sheet.
Yeah.
Then maybe
Matt's
put,
volunteering.
I would put it down, like, down here, sort of like version,
Yeah,
Version.
yeah.
Yeah,
version
there you go, good
2000s.
idea.
Yeah.
2018.
Aggressive.
I'll probably try not to have the Littleton town Wellwood such a big piece of this.
Okay.
Right, and actually, at that low impact development, I think, actually you were there, they were trying to leverage all the data that the water department collects to try to help the town with decision-making and direction regarding climate change and low impact development and things of that nature. So the data's there, but we don't leverage it, from what I understand. Yeah.
I would also just say adopted local regulations that are stricter than the act, because we have the bylaw and then we also have a regulation. They're distinct.
So on storm, I think something about maybe we can replace some of the groundwater text with information regarding stormwater and runoff. And you wrote as water travels over the surface of the land and to pick up. So okay, so that is storm. Maybe kind of spell out a little more the call it stormwater runoff and have a bullet just on its own about stormwater runoff. And so
And
talking
maybe
about
list the 8 interests of the act.
the what?
The 8 interests of the act. I mean, why
Yeah.
wetland?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I also just kind of selfishly, long ago in college, I remember learning about if you want to get people's attention, it's scary, urgent, local. So it's, why does this matter to me? And if it's like, oh, it's going to kill some salamanders, you hear half the people in here, they're like, great, let's kill some salamanders, So maybe, no, it's really, it's the cities, like you said, the aquifers, it's everyone, it's that communal sense of water quality, I think is what I was getting
Well,
at.
it costs the town money if we don't have good water quality, such as the proposal for a sewer on the common and how we're eligible for grants as long as we're not under enforcement for these elevated nitrate levels in groundwater under the common. And then the same deal with, I think all but one of the surface water bodies in town need total maximum daily loads for low dissolved oxygen. So that's like you get like all the nasty algae and duckweed, and then it sinks, and then it decays, and it takes up all the oxygen, and so you get anoxic. So that's what Spec Pond. That's one of the things that's impaired for, and then stormwater in trains, suspended solids, and things of that.
So if you could distill that into like 2 bullet points.
Yeah, no, I can. No, there's I can. There's there are EPA
Weapons from pollutants. That's basically.
Yeah, exactly. And there are EPA fact sheets, but having these things in our waterways, like beach closures happen because there's bacteria
Things like
after
that, yeah.
storms.
That's what I'm saying.
Um,
They just
Well, we have
kinda-
all the stormwater cards too.
Okay.
I would also have a blurb about our management of conservation areas in town. How we
Yeah, I think I only had a one-liner in there. I would like to get some more
beef
info.
that up a little section, and maybe even list some of what they are, like examples of them, like Bumblebee
Yeah.
Park.
Well, yeah, it depends on what the focus of this is.
Well, that's what is the conservation commission. One of our
I think,
primary
yeah,
duties is
I mean-
Yeah, I mean, 'cause the
conserving
focus of this
land.
was strictly the Wetland Protection Act.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean,
Um,
so how many people in Littleton, if you ask them what the Conservation Commission is doing, you know, they say, well,
Yeah.
you know, so I
Right,
just,
right.
No, that is true.
so the intent, I think, is just this one right off is to kind of get that first intro to folks.
Yeah, that's
Get over
great.
that sort of hurdle and up the PR side of things. And then we can refer them back to that older document.
We acquire all kinds of land within the town. But we don't seem to advertise it a whole lot. That was a big deal when we got the
Yeah.
Oak Hill. You can
Oh,
remember that?
that-
One? Yeah. The thing was, the railroad station was right there. That initial, and the people had the fear that it was gonna get overrun with people because you could get off the train.
Well, they certainly, I mean, you went through the whole thing with the purchase of Joyce Williams at town meeting. I mean, it gets a lot of support and people know what's going on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, property.
Yeah, great, so thanks. Just send me back anything and I'll incorporate a second draft.
No scribbles
Great.
for now.
Have you got us more, Amy?
No, I said we'll just push the minutes off to the next meeting.
How did we resolve the one we refused on, over at Wet Pond?
I haven't heard from them.
But you did do
The denial, yeah, they've got 10 days to appeal. I believe that the Pitterinos are gonna appeal 73 Hartwell. Their lawyers called for information, so. See where they go.
Hasn't it been 10 days from when we denied that?
Yeah, I feel like they're doing it. Oh, yeah, more like 7 maybe? 8 days?
It
Oh,
starts,
business
it starts when
days.
it's issued, not when it's voted.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Because you have 21 days, so if you did it when you vote, the 10 days would pass and wouldn't have even issued it yet.
I see.
Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to
We're all
adjourn.
done?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.